We are now live on Zoom and live on Facebook.
All right. I will call the regular meeting of the Cohasset School Committee to order for this Wednesday, February 15th, 2023. This is the first meeting of the Cohasset School Committee to occur after Valentine's Day this year. So we have that going for us. So with that, we'll do a quick roll call for committee members being present. Please indicate so when I call your name. Mr. Kearney?
Present.
Ms. St. Ange?
Present.
Ms. McCollum? Mr. Carr has noted that he will not be at the committee meeting, but we may maintain a quorum anyway with Mr. Dial present. So we have 4 of the 5 committee committee members, which constitutes a quorum. And so with that, we will now move to our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So we have a heavy agenda today, at least from a committee perspective. We have lots of papers in front of us because today is a nice meeting where we talk about actually some of the nuts and bolts of what we put together as a school. We were talking about some programs of study changes. And we have distinguished guests, our principals from the middle school and high school to come talk to us. Welcome. Thank you for coming. So before we move forward, I'll open it to the standard agenda item of public comment. This section of the agenda is intended for areas of comment that are not on the agenda. So if you want to make a statement or have a question for the school committee, this is a time to do it. But if you have a statement that's about an agenda item, you can let us know at this point so that we can come back to you, but we won't take that comment in substance at this time. So with that, I'll wait a couple beats to see if we have any public comments. We have no one in the audience except for our distinguished principal, so no need to worry about the audience in person. Oh. Can we be heard?
So you're gonna keep that camera?
So you just gotta turn off your camera so they don't see you on the screen. No, we can. Good. So I'm sorry. So we do not have any public comment.
No public comment. All right, moving rapidly through the agenda. We're now at invited guest. Mr. McDowell is unable to attend due to
Yes.
school commitments, which is
Yes.
important.
Right.
School comes first, even before school committee. So we will skip over invited guests and move to school updates, and we'll get some school news from our superintendent of schools, Dr. Patrick Sullivan.
Absolutely. My pleasure to provide some school news as we close in on February break. I always feel like February break is in some ways the first real break where people can relax because of the holidays associated with our previous break. It tends to be a pretty hectic time. I know as a teacher, I always felt like February break, I could actually, just relax a little bit and recharge. So I'm hoping that everybody gets a chance to do that. I'm certainly looking forward to it. We have had a really eventful couple of weeks now. Had some wonderful events happen. We did have an unfortunate event yesterday. I just want to mention, we did have it ended up being a hoax swatting farce, which is tragic that is happening. I just want to publicly thank our Cohasset Police for everything they do, first off, and secondly, for their response to the incident and the way that they helped us and guided us. And I also want to give kudos to Principal Mills and Principal Scott here and the way they handled that as well in their buildings, and then of course in our elementaries to make sure that we give it the proper amount of attention and all protocols were followed. But people who are listening should know that our police are incredibly responsive, and as you expect, that they're wonderfully responsive to the schools in terms of crisis scenarios. So that was a tough event, but very well handled, appreciated by us. We've had some really spectacular events for students over the last week or two. Last Friday, and this was very well advertised, we had our Credit for Life fair, which I know we've done it a few times. I'm not sure what the number is. This is the second one?
Go with the second one.
Well, so I'm honored to say I've seen them both. They've both been excellent. This is rejuvenated after COVID. And really at the heart of this, running this was Nicole Fitzgerald, who's a wonderful math teacher at the high school, really has taken this on, and a student, junior, Haley Santos, who did a wonderful job moderating the panel, and I'm told was instrumental in getting everything going. And also kudos to Principal Scott's here, him and his team. And I have to, really thank our Cohasset Educational Foundation, who provided this in a grant. It's a wonderful event for our senior class to learn about the importance of crediting, budgeting, financial literacy, and really what it means to be a young professional and to have to deal with budgeting, the areas you need to live, the insurance that you have to pay, and then of course the things you want to do from a leisure perspective. And we all know, we've been through it. It's not easy when you get out there in the real world. The stated goal for the fair is for students to learn to avoid negative financial impulses and to make informed decisions that will benefit their futures. And I just want to say, I know I speak for Principal Scott on this, and thank you to the whole community for helping out with this. The event started with a panel, and then you can see Haley moderating it. And forgive me, I don't know everyone on the panel, but some of them, you have Mr. Moriarty, who I know works for a local bank. And we have, you might recognize one of our select persons there, Miss Dipple Healy, sorry, I was.
Healy Dipple.
Other way.
Healy Dipple.
Dipple.
Healy Dipple.
I did that.
I was going alphabetical.
I know, I was doing the same thing in my brain, but excuse me for that. But she did a fabulous job. And you can see Jim Willis, who is our wonderful department chair, 6 through 12 in social studies, history, and also, obviously our head soccer coach. And then the other individuals' names are escaping me, but they
Caitlin
were.
Appleton's up there.
Yep.
Right?
Yes, he is, Mr. Appleton.
Mrs. Goff.
Who is it?
Mrs.
Appleton, that's right.
And Mrs. Appleton, Mrs. Goff, and Mr. Reed.
Yeah, they were all wonderful, and they spoke of their experiences as students coming out of high school, going into college, and how their paths turned, and how they've what they went through to reach a real high level of success. And all of them have Cohasset ties, even students currently. There were some had students who were in the audience, or students who have gone through, and of course you have a teacher in there as well. So really wonderful beginning to the event. And then the students had a sheet which gave them a small budget, and they had to go through and use that amount to a small salary, I should say, or a salary. And they had to go through and take that amount and plug it into different areas. And they walked around and had the opportunity to talk to advisors and to learn about crediting and banking and other things that would be necessary in being financially literate as a young person. So you can see many of our teachers participated, which was wonderful. And you can see them, kind of going through scenarios with the kids in these two photos, credit counseling. It's just a wonderful event. And again, big thank you to everyone who participated, and particularly to the CEF for allowing this grant. This is an event that we can do, moving forward. It was excellent. Today, we also had a wonderful event. This is in conjunction with Black History. This was a showing of the movie version of the book, The Hate You Give. If you haven't seen it, it deals with themes that are so important right now, paramount to our young learners to have to deal with the social crises that we have going on, and basically portrays a student who lives in the city and goes to school in a suburban area, not unlike Cohasset, and talks a lot about how that student does what is known as code switching, which means she acts a certain way when she's in the city around her friends who are from the city, and then when she goes to Cohasset, well, in this case, when she goes to the school that she's in, she acts in a way that sort of melds in with the kids that she's with, and the cost that comes from that and the pressures associated with that. And then it also has other storylines that deal with tragedies that have fallen upon us in society regarding law enforcement and students of color in this particular case. And it's a really interesting depiction because it shows multiple perspectives of a societal problem. And the panel that we had speaking about this was really wonderful because I believe all of them had some Cohasset tie, but and all of them were in law enforcement. So it was great to see. We had this panel. I did bring a list of them. So and I was in the audience, and it was a great conversation. In the middle there, we have Detective Lieutenant Mike Lopes, who's a wonderful, obviously law enforcement agent, but also an amazing human being. But to have him there, and with 35 years of experience, obviously as an officer of color, was a wonderful perspective. We have our own Greg Taylor there on the right. And then we have Carlos Parada, who is next to Mike Lopes. So he's the gentleman right here. He is a Boston firefighter and was a Boston policeman, but also I believe he spoke to us in our forum. I think he was part of the forum.
He's a parent and a former graduate.
He's a parent of two students, one in Osgood, one in Deer Hill, and a former Cohasset Metro student.
Yes.
Yes. And then we have another officer, or an officer, I should say, I'm going to say it wrong, but Salveris Reynoso, who is a Hispanic Black officer from Boston, who shared some and plans on being a co-parent soon, and shared some incredible experiences. And finally, to the far left there, we have Mercedes Batakis, who is a 2007 graduate of Cohasset High School, who is now a dispatch officer in Boston. And moderating it was our own Lisa Gittens Carl. And behind her, really sort of the driving spark of all of this is our diversity club. It's our students. So this was tremendous, and I'm proud to be in a school that really puts this out there and allows the students to explore this and to learn how they can make this better, and to really look at this as a very multifaceted, complex problem that deserves attention from everyone. So I thought this was very, very powerful. Thank you, Principal Scott, for your role in putting that on. Also with Black History, we had a couple of great events. We had Lisa Stringfellow, also a former Cohasset student, went to Deer Hill, read her book, which I believe is Caribbean. I'm looking at Principal Mills.
It's called A Comb of Wishes.
It's A Comb of
set in
Wishes.
the Caribbean.
Yes, exactly. To the students. And then we had brought from the PSO, Hip Hop Promotes Positivity Anti-Bullying Program at Deer Hill. We had, that was wonderful too. A lot of fun. That was fun. That was fun to watch. This is just a shout out to our school counselors. Last week was National School Counseling Week. And you just can't say enough about what they do for our students and for our school community. So thank you to all of our counselors. And today, and I missed the opportunity to really thank them publicly, but I did send an email, is School Resource Officer Appreciation Day. And there's our own Greg Taylor, Officer Taylor, on High Five Day. But thank you, Officer Taylor, for all you do and for providing such a positive role model for our students, and for, most importantly, for keeping us safe and helping with that. Yeah.
It's a great picture.
That's a cool picture. Yeah, thanks. I took that one. And then I just thought this was a nice event because, they've had a tough road of it. And, transportation's been kind of in the hot spot this year. But Principal Farrell, who's always so thoughtful, had a breakfast for our bus drivers. That was really nice. So they
After the kids got to school, right?
yes, yeah. After they dropped off everyone.
Do breakfast early.
Remember, Osgood's the last of the drop off, right? Exactly. So just wanted to share those. I thought that kind of rounded out a really nice couple weeks in Cohasset.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Sullivan. Just given the content of our agenda, we'll move quickly on to our teaching and learning block. And I think we'll start off with the high school program of studies, which will start. So, committee members, this is in your book, agenda item, labeled agenda item E1. It's a lot of pages, but we've got an expert to lead us through it.
And we have a nice cover page.
It's really only two substantive changes and nothing that I think is particularly controversial. We're looking to add some courses. So we're looking to increase our computer science offerings by creating a semester-long computer science course. And this is meant to be a buffer between some of the quarter electives that we have right now that Mr. Sasso teaches that are really well subscribed and well done, and AP computer science, which we have a limited interest in, but no real, there's a little bit of a gap in between what they're doing introduction wise and for the advanced placement. So, hopefully this would require a new teacher. We don't have anyone who's able to teach it right now, but we'd be looking to hire somebody who could potentially help out with this and that. We're looking to expand the electives that we're offering with 3D game in world design. This is something Mr. Sasso is taking some courses in. We offer 2D game design right now. This is a little bit more like Minecraft or one of those kind of game design things. So we're excited about potentially offering that. The next three courses are in the math department. One is accounting, which answers a lot of people's interests. The students brought it up. We had a teacher bring it up. We've had internal conversations with it. I know we've had conversations here about expanding some of the practical math offerings that we have. We also have some, not remedial math courses, but math courses that are set up to kind of help close some of those gaps that we saw over COVID. So high school math foundations class that will pick up on kids coming out from 8th grade into 9th grade and potentially into 10th, and then an integrated algebra and geometry. That is a reintroduction of a course that we offered a few years ago and potentially see a need for as a second semester sophomore course. So those are the big academic changes. The Watershed Institute has always been in there. We're looking to just pull it out as part of the work that we're doing with CSCR. Tomorrow, we're sending a contingent down to CSCR with 4 or 5 other towns, Situate, Hull, Hingham. We're meeting with Jack Buckley and his staff at CSCR. Me and Ed Savage, who's the science department chair, and Blair Duncan, Dr. Duncan, who's been doing a lot of student work, are taking 5 students down to work with a couple of consultants that we've worked with in the past that are flying in from Carolina and other towns to continue this work on watershed studies and really kind of push forward some of the work that Dr. Duncan did with her marine science classes in the fall in terms of having a conditions report ready and to pair with the environmental studies classes that just started. So really this isn't anything new. I just wanted to make it distinctive because I think it's really going to blow up into something that's really unique to us and to the area and really kind of a marketable highlight for students as they apply to college and go into environmental studies and environmental science and some of that stuff. All of this, of course, is dependent on whether we can find someone to teach it, what the interest is, if we can staff it, what we have to make decisions on in terms of if we run accounting, then what wouldn't we run, but that's normal high school scheduling, so that doesn't intimidate anybody. And then the second piece is really just, it's not a change, it's just a clarification around class rank. Our guidance department frequently kind of takes a look at other programs of studies to make sure that what we're doing is consistent, or if we're missing something. We typically provide class rank because it doesn't serve any real purpose. We provide GPA, we do rank students, we have a valedictorian, salutatorian, and we'll continue to do that. The military academy sometimes asks for class rank, we'll be able to do that. But I think it's kind of anachronistic. We have scattergrams and Naviance that show where students' GPAs line up with what schools they are looking to apply to. So all this does is really compare students against each other, which doesn't serve any purpose aside from individual ego. And Laura Struzier, who's our head counselor, or our lead counselor, found this, which apparently is about 20 years old, in another, or this type of language in another program of study, that really just kind of clarified why they didn't do it. So it isn't a change in practice. The language we had in there was just a little bit anachronistic, and I think, maybe 20 years or 25 years ago, there was a need for class rank when you didn't have the electronic tools. There really isn't right now.
And colleges and universities aren't asking for class.
No, they
rank.
don't care.
So just know that's a big change from when we were.
They might ask for a quartile, top 25%,
That's right.
top 50%.
And that's,
But even that isn't of much use for them. They're looking at students within our program of studies, within our atmosphere, and they have those scattergrams to
you're looking at
give them
GPA.
that data. They're looking at GPA, sure.
Yeah.
So those are really the two big changes, the introduction of the new courses and just the clarification around classroom.
Thank you, Principal Scott. I'll turn it over to the committee for any questions. Mr. Kearney.
I gotta go first.
You might, it could be random, I don't know.
Share us.
This chair is going chaos today.
Usually Ted, I can bounce off him a little bit. This is great.
You can yield your time and we'll go to
I do, what I really like here is the accounting process. Because I think that we deal with it every day. And for children to learn, and I'm definitely wish that children would be able to know what a balance sheet is, what are projections, what are, we were talking about, Lydia and I talking about our kids know what agendas are, which is great. I didn't know what an agenda was when I was their age, right? So these are the things that I just love seeing. World design, I think that's something that is definitely going in the right direction. And also too, is you mentioned, I would ask you, like, as far as the electives go, I serve in the wellness committee. What we heard from the kids, they want sewing, cooking. And my question would be, as we talk about new schools, right? What are some of the limits that you have as a school principal that you can't do, that you could do if you were to expand or renovate or to add?
Yeah, so before we go on, given that we do have a tight agenda.
No, but I mean, it's a simple question. I mean,
It is, but this might be one that we want to focus on when we talk about facilities.
no, it's relevant to what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Explain that. If we don't have, the kids are asking for home. I've done my homework. The children are in the school. I think I serve somebody who knows what the kids they're asking. If we don't have a thing that's set up for it, maybe we can use the kitchen, whatever it is. Do you see any obstacles that would stop the kids from being that or to have elected, that we could add that maybe in the future?
So if you take money and resources aside and put it over here,
Okay.
right? Because if we had, huge buildings and, 18 kitchens and whatever, the one limitation that we have is our size. So for example, we have PE classes, we have wellness classes that are required. One of the things we tried to do 7 or 8 years ago was create a CrossFit class, create a yoga class. The challenge with that, with our population, is that you have a single course that everything revolves around. And so it never populated because kids were taking, they wanted APs, they wanted, they had the core subjects, they had required electives, they wanted band. And so like this had to fit in that
Right.
puzzle.
Right, okay, so
In just enough space so that the kids who wanted it could take it. It was very difficult to fill.
yeah, so to follow up on that, we could do after-school programs by doing, 6 weeks to learn how to chef. Right?
Absolutely.
Stuff
I
like
think that's a great partnership with like the
With
rec
the little-
center.
Right,
you know,
okay,
with maybe some businesses that like,
Right. right, because that's what the kids are asking.
Mix It Up Kitchen and
The other
Duxbury is a great resource and stuff like that.
Yeah, and my other comment is about the school rankings. That's interesting because it's like other school districts do.
No,
Most school districts aren't doing school rankings.
class rank, no.
Last one?
That's,
It's not that we can't provide it, but when we did our research, nobody in the area is doing
it's a big,
it. We are also not really
Okay.
doing it. So,
it's kind of an archaic thing now. Just different.
Thank you, Mr. Kearney. Ms. St. Ange, any questions, comments?
I think these are great adaptations to the changing times and the changing student body and very responsive to our needs in a, I don't know, for post-COVID, but in a evolving COVID adjacent world. I also think just mental health wise, it makes so much sense, right, Mr. Kearney, to not be talking about class rank, like you're saying about research. Blowing up someone's ego or crushing them down. So I think, yeah, great growth and change with time and responsive to the student.
Thank you, Ms. Eno. Vice Chair McCollum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Principal Scott, thank you. I just, generally, I always think that the high school, one thing the high school does mean, high school does many things right, but one thing it does right is I think it offers really robust curriculum overall. Some great electives for our kids to benefit from. And I just think it offers a real diverse experience academically and exposes them or gives them at least the opportunity to get exposed to all kinds of different things. So, just looking through it, like it, almost reads like, like a college elective list in some ways, right? It's like, obviously introductory level, it's exciting to see that. I just have a few questions. The math foundations, what would you call it? High school math foundations. Knowing you, I'm sure you've given thought to this. I just want to ask about it. It's not going to be billed as a remedial course. It is a remedial course. And that reason I want to make sure that there's no like unintended, sort of, negative stigmatism attached to, any of the kids that are in the class, or they feel bad about being in that class or like that. I mean, first of all, it's certainly a necessary class to offer, given what we've gone through, what kids have gone through, right? And especially these kids that we were now, where they were, at a crucial time, psychological, sort of emotional and academic development, probably in middle school at the time. So they've lost a lot of fundamental skills. I just want to make sure that there's an approach to like making sure that it's not thought of as like, these kids are not as smart, or they're not, they're struggling more, they're just, they're not intelligent or something like that. Do you understand what I'm getting at?
Yeah, so the important thing to know is that it's an elective. So it's not a required course. We're not going to force anybody into it.
Okay.
Students will have to elect it. There are students who are in special ed who have math or English goal or math goals in particular. Those students will have those goals addressed in their learning centers. This is for kids who are maybe really interested in math, want to go far in math, know that they're not at the level that they like to be at, would like to kind of buttress what they're going to be doing. So they'll be taking 2 math classes a week. So they'll be taking, algebra 1 or geometry and this, kind of additional class. They're going to have to elect to do that.
Okay.
And if they say, what, it's not for me, I'd rather do, ceramics or something like that, we don't let them do that.
Okay, all right. I mean,
It will be data driven. We'll have some data
Okay.
coming out of middle school. They'll say, we really think this is a good idea. We'll have those conversations.
okay,
with
good.
parents.
That was my next
Yeah,
question. Okay, and maybe the guidance counselors can get
Of
involved in
course.
that, or, okay, all right. So, great. In other words, don't let the kids think that way and then decide to not go with it when in fact they could really benefit from it.
Yeah, so it's a large conversation. Right now, the teachers are making recommendations, so the parents are going to view those. We have our curriculum night coming up. We'll explain it to them then. We're going to sit down with the kids in kind of half the 8th grade in 2 general assemblies and then smaller groups. And then, to the extent that we can, I used to sit with every 8th grader individually. The counselors now do that to say like, all right, like let you and me just talk. What are you really looking to get out of this? Because at the end of the day, when you come into school in September, nobody cares what your team, they care what their team. Right? So what's in your best interest? And I find that, once kids can push the clouds away and see a little bit clearly, they choose selfishly because they're going to put the effort in, they want, what's best for them. And that also means that some kids are like, you know what, I wouldn't have room to take band. I love the trombone. I'm going trombone, and I'll figure out math in another way. And that's okay too.
Can I just don't interrupt, but I have to make a note of that. So that ability to talk to every single 8th grader and have a conversation with a high school administrator or guidance counselor about your goals and plan is really unique. And that is, my kid doesn't get that in the school system that I have. Like, that is a really nice thing to be able to do with your high school staff, working with your middle school staff. So sometimes we glaze over things that are really special because we have a lot of that. I just wanted to point that out.
I was
So excuse
smiling,
my
I
interruption.
was smiling while Principal Scott was saying it because I do recognize he does that, but I started the question by saying, knowing you, I'm sure you've already thought of this. And,
Oh.
it's clear that there's been a lot of stuff. So it completely extinguishes any concerns I
Yeah.
had about that.
And that's what makes it more efficient, so we're able to do it a little bit more broadly. But at the end of the day, every parent's welcome in and we'll have a conversation. We'll have 35 conversations if you want.
Okay, good. All right, good. Then with regards to nothing new, just a couple of quick questions about existing.
Mhm.
English 176 and English 177 electives, which are creative writing.
Yep.
Like, are they two of the same course so that more people can participate, or are they?
Two different levels, so one's a CP and one's accelerated.
Oh,
We haven't been able to run them in the past because we don't have a large enough English staff to be able to offer a lot of electives. So the question comes down to, and we're offering it again this year. How many kids are interested? Once we see that, then we have to compare that number to, all right, if we were to run this, where does that semester come out of? So if that semester comes out of, one of the English 11 sections, and that means that we have, one section instead of two, but that one section is 30. Maybe we'd rather have two sections of 15 and not run creative writing. So those are decisions that we have to make in April and May once we figure out what the numbers are.
and that sounds like a resource issue, a perfect human resource issue.
Yep, and we do it every year. I mean, there was 2 years ago, we had a AP 11 AP language class that ran at 32. And this year we have 2 language classes that run at 16,
When's the last time we ran creative writing?
probably 4 or 5 years ago.
It's something that I feel is. And has there been a decent amount of student interest in it? Or have we not run that because we've been short on staffing issues, or because there just wasn't a lot of interest in it?
There's generally interest. There's generally about between 16 and 25 kids are interested in taking it.
Yeah, so that's, because I'd like to, that's a really important skill, it's a very unique skill. I write a lot, but I can't write creatively, and it's when you see someone that can write creative, it's a really special skill.
Yeah.
So I'd love to foster that in the district if we can, because I'm sure we have kids that have that talent.
I bet if we looked it up, it would follow the bubble population.
Okay,
Because when I started in 2012, there was an 86 kid graduating class. I think last year was 125. So I think once that 86 got up into 100, 110, then that creative writing class probably said, all right, we're going to do it somewhere else. The other thing that has impacted it is the number of kids who want to take AP classes, because those are full year classes. So that's 2 semesters.
Mhm.
So when you double AP language or double AP lit or triple AP lit, as we have in the past, now you're really cutting down on some other classes. You have to offer those semester 11 and semester 12 classes.
all right, yeah, I know the schedule is an ongoing beast,
Yeah.
wrangle, so,
Um,
okay, well, just. Well, anyway, just if you can be cognizant of that, moving forward. And then lastly, sorry, Mr. Chairperson, it's the last question, it's quick. I didn't notice, so I love the social studies department. I think we have a really robust social studies department. We have some great offerings there. I didn't notice like an American civics or political science type class. Is it maybe included in other courses I'm just missing, or we just don't have something like that in the elective right now?
There's definitely a civics component in the US history courses, and we offer both 1 and 2, which is twice what a lot of other schools offer. I don't know, I wouldn't be able to answer off the top of my head to what degree we get into political science and political science philosophy and that type of thing, John Locke and, some of that stuff. I would imagine we touch on it. I don't know how in-depth we get, but I'm also not familiar with how much of it is in the standards and whatnot. I know there's a pretty robust Quinta Club that Mr. Levici runs with Ms. Batista, which is a term that came from Benjamin Franklin around thinking bodies, and they discuss political philosophy and they discuss politics, and but it runs as a club, not as a course.
Great if we could have a course that includes that, but also, more formal instruction on, American government, civics, and, current.
Yeah.
Not just historical context, so.
I think it'd be great, you know.
So, yeah, would that, do you think that creating another elective in the social studies department would also confront us with similar sort of staffing issues?
We run into the same issue that I was, describing to Paul, where we had a proposal for a course a couple of years ago from Mr. Welch, which was fantastic. It was a course that traced parallel American music and American political ideology and kind of went through the decades of that in the 20th century. It had some interest, but it was that one single section. And we just couldn't make it work for enough kids to run with the other combinations of courses.
Okay, well, maybe we can give some thought to a, more current civics, political science type course.
Yeah.
at some point.
I mean, my advice to the department heads every January is write it up and we'll put it in, and if kids sign up for it, great. It might be that we have a swell of kids, especially sophomores and juniors, who really, our kids really excel at the electives that go above and beyond what the requirements are. So I was sharing with Dr. Sullivan, and I'd be happy to share with you, our science electives, our social studies electives, our math electives are like 150%. So 150% of the kids in the school are taking things beyond what is required. There's an appetite for all of that stuff. It's just a question of figuring out where to put it in and what to take its place.
Yeah, the way I'm always thinking is I want to make sure we're providing the outlets for the interest that we're having within our students, right? So that they can maybe find a path to professional occupations that they really love. I mean, I know that and obviously political science and civics would be trying to offer that outlet for people that are inclined to leadership positions, government positions, which I know, feeding into high school, our middle school does a lot to foster, leadership, sort of way of thinking, the way that they structure student government is, in my opinion, it's crushed the way, it's very revolutionary. So I just want to make sure that we're offering, in all these, and I know you put a great deal of thought of it. I'm just giving my 2 cents.
No, it's great. I'll take all ideas. Absolutely.
But thank you very much, Principal Scott.
May I ask one quick question?
Sure.
On, just because Mr. McClellan brought up 176, 177, there's another 177 listed. I just didn't know if that was, I feel like for coding purposes, that wouldn't make sense. Computer. It's on page 24, it says 177 creative writing. On 25, it says 177 literature and media.
2 separate courses.
But both coded 177.
No, we stopped running literature and media, so that's just.
Okay, so it
That's
doesn't
a
matter. I just
mistake.
thought like someone plugged that in.
I'll have to double check. There were a
Okay.
couple of course items that didn't match up because of a couple of different things that we did over the years.
Yeah.
Especially in the languages when they switched the nomenclature.
Yep.
But that's just clean up. Guidance is pretty on top of that because you'll see it right away.
Right. I just didn't know if it.
It could just be a
mattered
typo.
in here for,
Yeah.
Okay.
So on that point, is this literature in the media section eliminated from the program studies?
We have not run that. Typically, we leave things in the program of studies so that we don't have to reintroduce them, but at this point, I'll probably take that out. I took out Latin because we haven't run Latin in years.
Dead language.
Exactly. You'd be surprised how few people use it.
I love that. But for the purpose of what we're approving here, it's still in the program studies, or what's presented in program
I can leave it in or I can take it out.
It's up to you.
We're not gonna run it, so.
And let's take it out.
Why don't we approve taking it out?
Okay, so for viewers, just know that strike that in what you're asking for.
You can always put it in future years.
Yep.
So I have a couple questions. One is going to be kind of a foundational, to borrow the foundational math, foundational high school schedule discussion, if you don't mind.
Mhm.
So this program of studies, we have core and then we have electives. And then it sounds like, and this is going to be kind of getting caught up, the electives, there's a bunch of electives and they're not all run. How do you select which is run? Is it based, students can select from anything in here and you see what the interest is?
Yeah, pretty much. So basically, we're sitting down with the kids now, and so the teachers will make recommendations. The kids will then sit down with their families and look at those recommendations. So you're gonna have, 12 courses, for example. And you're gonna say, yeah, this makes sense. This is my math level. You know what? I'd really like to jump up a level in English, so I'm gonna change it and put that in. I don't like these electives. I'm gonna pick these 3 or whatever. Once that's pretty good, then we feed it into the system. The system then gives us course numbers. So that says that I have, 8 freshmen, incoming freshmen who are going to take English 9. Great. How many are going to take college prep? How many are going to take accelerated? This is the easiest one. And then I just divide them up. So how many sections do I need that are reasonable? How many teachers do I have that can teach them? So some years we'll run, 5 sections of English 9 with 100 kids. Sometimes we'll run 6 sections of English 9 with 100 kids, depending on what other needs we have. The electives operate the same way. So I'll sit down with, let's say, the social studies electives, and I'll say, all right, 60 kids want conspiracy theory. I don't want to run more than 2 sections because then I'd have to eliminate a core course, a US 1 course. So I'm going to run 2 sections, knowing that they probably won't knowing that it won't fill to 60, but it might fill to 50. And then those kids will end up selecting a different, the kids who get bumped out will select a different course. The system has an algorithm that it builds based on interests. And so we assign teachers to courses, we assign semesters to courses. The algorithm tells them what blocks they best fit in, and then we hand schedule the rest.
So when these electives end up on the cutting board, they create a writing example.
Yep.
That can be either because of limited interest in the student body or limited blocks in the schedule. There's only so many blocks. In the
Yeah, it's limited interest or limited teachers. Yeah.
So it's limited, so you don't, but imagine because you couldn't run 100 electives because there's not that many course blocks in the day. You've got minimum amount done by core. Okay.
Most of the electives I'll run. It's a question of how many sections.
Okay, that's helpful. And then have you had situations where you are limited by teachers?
Yeah, I think our English department is pretty light in terms of the electives that we're able to offer. Now, some of that is because it's the same number of people that are in other departments, but our freshman and sophomore year English are full year.
Yep.
Our AP junior and senior English are full year, and those are very well subscribed. So there isn't a lot of room because you have to offer one of every level. So one of the issues so it's a good problem to have, but we doubled our English 11 AP courses, but we still have to run English 11 CP and English 11 accelerated. So even if I have 5 kids in English 11 CP, I need to run that section because those kids need it.
Yep.
And it prioritizes by the core courses and then runs the electives on a separate suite.
And so is that something, given the other limitations on blocks of time and on student interest, is that something if we had another English teacher that you could do more with?
Yeah, and Sue and I in the leadership team have talked about adding, potentially a half English teacher and a half, math teacher in order to bump up the electives in those areas. You want to be thoughtful about it so that, you want to know what you want to run, where that's going to draw kids from. The interest is certainly in academic style electives, and to have enough where kids can kind of shape their own path is good.
Yep.
And I think, I think this is where we are really at an advantage as a small school utilizing the block schedule the way we do, because our kids can take, 12 extra courses over the course of 4 years than most other schools because of the way it plays out. Because they're not kind of pigeonholed into year-long classes. So without getting too far into it, because I know you have a busy agenda, it does, if you look at some of the numbers of our kids' elective participation in the arts, for example, it's at 96%. This is all public data, you can get it off the state website. Other schools are at 8, 9, even our computer science program, which is new, has, 50% of the kids are currently engaged at some point in the year in a computer science elective. That's a huge number compared to other places. So, there are opportunities. There are weaknesses too, but there are opportunities for, kind of scheduling the way it has been.
Just 2 more questions. One just occurred to me. Do the electives compete against a free period?
No student has a free period.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no studies.
Excellent. So they compete against each other, which is good. Last question. We're adding 5, I'm proposing to have 5 electives, and then a special program. Are these reflected in the budget and you have staffing for it? Are there needs that you need? If these are added to program studies and selected by students, are there needs that you would need to actually be able to make them happen?
No, so we've asked for a math teacher. If we get a math teacher, I'd like that person to also have some background in computer science, which is deliberate because I don't have enough student interest and I don't have enough course offerings to be able to hire a full-time computer science person. So I need someone who's got a little bit of a dual role, who can kind of build it up. And then down the line, if we want to, add another math person and make this person full-time computer science, we can do that. So the computer science and the 2 math electives, I need this math person for. Accounting, I have someone who can teach it. It would be at the expense of some other elective. So that might mean that we cut down, a section of principles finance or statistics. It might be that kids choose that over global studies.
And so you would choose that, give or take, based on student interest.
Yeah, so we sit down with the department heads and basically say, all right, here's what everybody wants. You guys help me pick the teachers and where we're going to teach. What do we decide we want to run? Do we want to run a big section of this and 2 small sections of this? Or, divide it up a different way, not run an elective and have 2 small sections or whatever.
That's all the questions I have. I'll have just one comment. I can't believe you can do this. This is a massively complicated thing.
It's more complicated than people think. When they say, well, how come he can't get, X, Y, and Z? And it's like, you can't fit 5 pounds of sand into a 1 pound bag.
Yeah, and there's
But every school has to deal with it. And I think that we, again, given the size and the limitations, I think our kids have a ton of opportunities. It might not be exactly when they want it, and in the class of friends that they want to take it with, but they're going to have the opportunity to do a lot of things.
And that's coming out of the NEASC too, as you get into it, I believe, right?
So I think that's all my questions. What I'll do here, actually, this is for approval, since you're here. I will see if there is a motion to approve the program of studies from the committee. Oh, actually, before we do that, I did have one more nit on the, sorry about that, I'm a little all over the place. I got excited by your presentation, so class rank. I agree with the whole thing, but what I didn't hear, I feel the distance between the language and what you're saying. Well, the proposed language is that students at Cohasset High School are not assigned a ranking class. That sounds like it's that we do assign the rank because we do apply, give it to the military academy and some other places.
We have the ability to run a rank. We would do that if asked. So if the Naval Academy said, we really need to know what, Mr. Scott's class rank is, we would be able to do that. Same as we're able to pull up the valedictorian and sort of.
Okay, so you're not, so the distinction, and I just spent this weekend in the policy committee looking at a bunch of policies, so I've got these kind of things right. You're not actually assigning a rank to people and saying, this is your rank for it, but you have the data.
We have the data, yeah, we could do
That's
it if
not
we wanted to, but we're
inconsistent.
not, we don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. So with that, any other questions, comments from the committee? So I'll entertain if there's a motion to approve the high school proposed changes to the program of study for the 2023-2024 year with the addition of the amendment we discussed on the elimination of
Literature and the media.
literature and media.
So moved.
A motion by St. Ange, do I have a second? A second from Mr. Kearney, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, unanimous of the 4 people, the program of studies and the changes discussed are hereby approved. Please implement, and thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott. All right. And with that, we will move on to the second element of teaching and learning, the middle school program of studies with our esteemed guest, Mr. Principal Mills.
See, if Mr. Carter's not gonna be here, can we make a motion, I drink his water?
Yeah.
I'm afraid I'm gonna start coughing.
I actually don't believe that needs to be motioned.
Okay.
From a governance perspective.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for reviewing the changes to program studies. Program studies really should give families, prospective CMS families, a sense of who we are. So the goal this year was really to make sure that the CMS program studies really accurately reflected our offerings. So there aren't tremendous numbers of changes, but some of it was around language to make sure that we've accurately describing what's being taught in our classes. The core values and beliefs, actually on page 3, I forgot to number the executive summary, I'm sorry about that.
But that, we included the current core values and beliefs for the district. The document actually had a much older set of core values and visions, so that's really just an update. The second one, our guidance course, which is in the handbook on pages 9 through 10. We just updated the course description. It had previously included a brief sort of communication and social engagement, but we wanted to sort of pull that out a little bit and talk about some of the skills that are taught in that class and some of the learning objectives. Once again, so that a prospective family looking at that course would have a much better sense of the goals of the class. Foundations of Math, which is on page 22, is a new course. We actually piloted it this year under the name Principles of Math, but we decided for next year to kind of rebrand it as Foundations of Math so that there is some, it's kind of a vertical alignment with the high school. The Math Foundations, or like I said, this year Principles of Math course is an explanation of the language describes it. Really, the goal is that it's a course for any student who might need some math support. It's a tier 1 intervention. In other words, anybody can take the course. We have kids in Principles of Math this year. Our practice was that we would, throughout the year, review data such as the iReady results, MCAS, and MCAS history, and then performance in classes, or at the beginning of the year with 6th grader, which is based on Deer Hill recommendations. And then we had conversations with families about the benefit of being in the course, which is a little bit different than the high school's Foundations of Math, which is, kids elect to go in. For us, it's a family school decision. Once in the class, we don't use the phrase accelerated, but we really use the accelerated roadmap that DESE put forth as a way to help us come out of MCAS, out of COVID, excuse me. The idea is that our Math Foundations or Principles of Math teacher works closely with the grade level teachers and identifies upcoming learning objectives. She might talk to the 6th grade math teacher and find out, well, next week they're doing multiplication, division of fractions. So this week she'll go back and review with kids how to add and subtract fractions to get them sort of ready for the following week or upcoming curriculum. So that's really the goal and the outline. And like I said, we've piloted this year and we've sort of evolved it now that we're more than halfway through the year, and really pleased with it. Kids seem to be making nice progress in their grade level math classes. So like I said, next year it's going to be rebranded Math Foundations. Number 4 is research. It's once again an established course, but we wanted to be clear to any users of the program of studies that the research course works in conjunction with our 8th grade civics class to fulfill the state's civics project requirement, and completes all parts or all stages of the civic project requirement that the state has. And really, I think gets kids in a really good place to move to high school and certainly complete the high school civics project requirement, but then also be, better researchers and academic writers for any of their courses. Some page 40 and 41 in the program studies draft. And then lastly, our science courses. As I think Dr. Scollins has mentioned in prior school committee meetings, we've adopted a science curriculum called Open Science Education. The prior course descriptions that were in the program of studies really no longer applies. Open Science Education still, certainly teaches the state frameworks, but does so in somewhat of a circular manner, and really focuses on a different approach to teaching science that's much more exploratory and student-centered. And I think in working with the science department head, Mr. Savage, and his teachers, we came up with an accurate description that would be that's reported for each 6, 7, and 8 science, And then that grade level's course units of study are reported, and that's pages 25 through 30. So we've updated the frameworks to reflect that we've reorganized our science with this new curriculum. And those are the proposed changes.
At the implicit request of Mr. Kearney and Ms. St. Ange, would you like to lead us off? Any
I'm
questions
sorry,
or
just like to point out the opposite order of you, Mr. McCullen and me, but.
comments? I'm going around, it's
that's fine.
random.
Okay, just wild card night here. Again, I mean, just excellent updates, very responsive to the times. I think the Math Foundations is like any time that we can kind of close the gap is really important, especially in middle school before they even get to high school and need it. So I think that these updates are perfect and changing with the times. Very well done.
Thank you, yeah, and I really have to thank school committee because they approved the math interventionist position for last year, and that's what made the course possible, and of course, our kids work with the math specialists at Osgood and then the great staff at Deer Hill, and then we wanted to make sure when those kids came up, they continued to be supported. And it's been interesting because there's some students that some parts of the curriculum find it a little bit challenging. Somebody might do a little bit better with geometry, but they have, a little bit more struggle with algebra and equations. So students are able to come in and out of the course as a determinant class. So it's been successful.
Is the class size, what is the class size on average?
On average, it's usually fewer than 10.
That's awesome.
Yeah, 5 to 10, and you really, the interventionist is able to differentiate. There's a lot of math being experienced by the students at the whiteboard, marker in hand.
They're engaged in the math.
Super engaged, and it really gives them a chance to experience the conceptualization, the application, and then a good, really like an experience with the procedural part of math. So it's been very successful.
Feels a lot safer to talk about math with only 10 people in there.
Much so.
25, right?
Yeah.
For me. Maybe not for math. Thank you, that's all I know.
Thank you, Ms. St. Ange. Mr. Kearney.
No, no. Excellent. I just want to thank both of you. What you do for our kids. Thank you. This is a well thought out plan. Make sure that it's inclusive and thank you for that. The only comment I do have in regards to non-enrolled done in the schools.
Yeah, we reported on the report cards.
Yeah, and I was just wondering, unlike other districts, I get the school ranking, I do get that, but I do think that we should honor the kids that do get honors and high honors. We haven't done that in this district in 6 or 7 years. We haven't printed which kids are in high honors and which kids are honors.
I can tell you why.
Yeah, I mean,
It was like 92% of the kids.
It's a lot of kids.
So we're really highlighting the kids who were not. We have a full page of that.
and the kids not.
So that's,
Kids know it.
I will
It's such a small
thank you
place.
for that. I'm going to repeat it just for people at home in case it didn't come through. So the question was about why we have not done the honor roll. And the answer is compelling to me that the 92% of our students would have made the honor roll, which instead of highlighting those who succeed, it does highlight the inverse. So I think that's it.
Okay, well, that's it. And that's.
I mean, we want to recognize
I
that.
thank you, gentlemen, for that statistic. Statistic. I did want to bring that.
Thank you, Mr. Kearney. Vice Chairman Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Principal Wheels, thanks for the presentation, and thanks for all that you do. The introduction to research course is excellent. This is the type, they've all heard me say this time and time again, this is true project-based learning, right? This is where I feel like true teaching and learning is sort of going in that direction. I mean, you're really going to extract a much more value-laden academic experience through something like that. There's a lot of different components to it, but it's also, it makes for a more memorable experience. So my question is, and obviously some disciplines are more compatible with this type of learning format than others, but do we try to incorporate at least some level of this approach to other courses? Because like, in other words, so for example, group collaboration and then presentation. So those are two great skills that not only, you know, or they're great tools to teach very important skills. But also, I think make for more impactful and memorable learning experiences, because if you're presenting on it, obviously you're more likely to take something away more permanently. Do we sort of, I always want to see this type of approach applied wherever possible. So I see it obviously explicitly outlined in this particular course. Do you feel that the teachers, and I've seen some from some of the spotlights on learning in the middle school, that we've employed that approach in other, not just in this particular course, but do you feel that there is a substantial amount of project-based learning going on in the middle school?
Yeah, the question's a substantial amount. I think,
Well, that's fairly subjective, so
Yeah,
let me rephrase
yeah.
it. Are you, as a well-qualified middle school principal, satisfied with the level of project-based learning?
You know, yes, right now. We did, prior to COVID, have a couple great team-based, project-based learning experiences for kids. The COVID kind of changed that, where we weren't able to invite parents in and audience members. So we've kept some form of them. Best example is grade 6 with the Boy at Harness the Wind project. They still do it. In fact, the middle of March, they'll be done with the book. There is a fair. Parents will be able to be invited in again. Right now, we're in a bit of a transition period because, like I said, we adopted a new science curriculum this year. It takes 2 to 3 years to really, and this is a very different approach, and the teachers are doing a wonderful job with it. It takes a couple years to really, because now you've got teachers teaching brand new units, things that had been previously taught in other grades. So they're focused right now on learning the curriculum. In collaboration with Dr. Scollins, we're going through a district, K through 12 curriculum review of math curriculum. That the final report will probably come out with some insights that, my experience has been that the process usually comes out with insights that, require, a little bit of change and to really optimize the curriculum. We're in a bit of a place right now where curriculum's kind of evolving. And I know, because I've spoken to faculty, we're a year or two away from being able to get back to where we were. And we've also had a lot of faculty come in. So we're going to have to sort of take a step back, retrain, and be able to build those really robust units. But I tell you, as a faculty, the experience that people had with training a few years ago and with building these units, they haven't let go. That's been, for science, for instance, it was the hardest part of adopting a new curriculum was having to give up PBL units that great amounts of work went into and they really believed in. So we're in a bit of a transition, but I as a school, we will get back to it.
And Vice Chair McClellan, it's interesting because we just communicated about a need to Dr. Scollins, myself, and Mills sit down and talk a little bit more about how we can support Mitchell Mills faculty in diving back into project-based learning, fully. But we also need to look at that in terms of our strategic planning and in terms of what this next year means for us, from our district. The coming year will be the last year of the strategic plan, and then as we start building our next plan. And I think that will incorporate a lot of what Principal Scott finds and ask as well about envisioning for the graduate and what our staff and what the staff is at the middle school and high school are proud of, and how we can support them in those ventures too. Because I think a lot that's coming out is they're very proud of the ability to have these authentic learning experiences for our students So we need to really talk about what those are and how we foster that going forward. So I think you really hit the metal there, because it's exactly where we are as a district.
And I know that you as superintendent, you placed and Dr. Scollins as well as your assistant superintendent, placed a fairly substantial emphasis on taking that approach in the district. And so, I'm not suggesting that Principal Mills isn't, I just want to, I feel personally that middle school, and I feel we have an absolutely top-notch middle school administration in our district. But middle school, I think, is kind of that developmental period where I think you can first really see some extremely significant benefits of PBL, project-based learning.
Definitely.
You can see it to an extent in the later elementary years, but it's a real simplistic sort of stripped down version of it. And I just feel that if we start employing those measures more in the middle school level, they're going to be that much more prepared when they get to Principal Scott's building to have those really robust, open, meaningful discussions and presentations and just collaboration about all these different concepts that are being thrown at them. So I'm just sort of trying to put it out there because I see this course.
Yeah.
And this is awesome. This is excellent, right? And so I love it. And obviously that's the purpose of it is it's focusing on research and how you do that and how you present your findings, things like that, and work with the team. But if we can incorporate that approach into other courses, again, some disciplines are more compatible with that type of learning, I think, medium than others. Like I don't, it might be a little bit more difficult to do that in algebra.
Well, yeah, but the teaming aspect of it really does play into having, to your point, middle school be a real good place to do project-based.
Exactly.
And if we increase our library position, I feel like that would be
Yes.
another level of support for
Yeah.
that research and project-based learning
Your point's
collaboration
well-
with the librarian.
Yeah. So anyway, that's just my thought when I saw that. This is really great.
Oh, it's a-
How long have we how long has this been the way this course is structured
The
here?
course has been, it was here when I got here. Mrs. Cerruti, our the librarian, the library specialist, teaches the course and she does a great job. And she continually refines it and enhances it. But it certainly predated me. It's been the social studies department, Mrs. Cerruti, Mr. Willis. They had created this some time ago. I'm not sure how long, but it's at a place now where it's quite impressive. The kids today, in the research class where they had invited in a couple of guests, including a local fisherman who's very active in fisheries, because one of the groups, they're talking about sustainability. And this gentleman is wonderful. So he came in and they sat and they were able to, interview him and learn about it. And they videotaped some of it. So, that's the kind of project it is. It's very connected to the real world. It's very authentic. So it's an outstanding example of it. And like I said, we've had some absolutely wonderful examples. The strategic plan, included both continued PBL, but also a curriculum review and change process.
Right.
So we had to take a step back, achieve the curriculum, and then we're able to go forward.
Sure, makes sense.
Yeah, but I tell you, as a faculty though, especially the teachers that have built those projects there, it's you don't have to convert anybody. They've seen the magic of it. They do believe in it. So we look forward to, this is an improvement, the curriculum work, and then we'll be able to, with the new curriculum, be able to go back and reemploy what they've learned about PBL.
Fair enough, thank you. I just saw an opportunity to make plug for PBL, so I did.
Yeah, you don't have to make a PBL with us. I appreciate it. Great minds.
Yeah, we don't have a formal academic update, so this is perfect.
Yeah.
Right, that's the,
There you go. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Principal Mills, this is great. I appreciate all the attention that you give to our program. So I actually have no questions on the proposed changes except for the same one that I had with Mr. Scott. It looks like we are adding a course which is representative of the new math resource that we've approved. Are the other adds supported by the current staffing model? Or it looks like maybe are the other ones just revisions to existing courses?
Just revisions to existing courses. The science courses where we have a new curriculum, we wanted to describe it more accurately. Research, like we just spoke about, it's been around for quite a while. Guidance courses, same thing. It's been taught for quite a while. So we're just continue, we're trying to update it and make sure that, there's a, family, that wants to learn more about Cohasset Middle School, at least the document they're reading reflects what's being taught today.
Right. That's perfect. And so from a resource perspective, you have no concerns with implementation of the code. So, excellent. I didn't see an alchemy course in here. We do want to bring gold into, no, I'm kidding.
Help.
Yeah, even though it helped me
That's
with
not
budget.
It was all going well until.
Maybe teach the alchemists in the high school.
Exactly. And maybe more of a high school. Rachel Scott will talk about that later. So, okay, I have no further questions, concerns. Any other comments from the committee, concerns of the committee? If not, this is as with the high school program studies, an item the committee is being asked to approve. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the middle school program studies and amendments as presented at the meeting. So,
Second.
second, it is, we have a motion from Vice Chairman Collin, a second from Ms. St. Ange. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, program studies is unanimously approved. Thank you very much, Principal Mills and Zimmerman, and thank you again.
Thanks very much. Have a good night, everyone.
Have a great night.
Just in the interlude, before we move on to our student services update, for those community members who are watching at home or participating, I do encourage you to take a look at these, at least the ones relevant to your own students. They're tremendous, these documents, and it really highlights the quality of our schools and the offerings that we have. And so if you haven't really spun through this, do spend some time. It really gives you an idea of what's going on at these schools and just how much we, how well we do the whole education thing, which is sometimes lost on the overall issues that we face as a committee. So with that, Ms. Wonk, I'd like to turn it over to you for the student services update.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to see all of you tonight. And kind of before I move into that, I just have to, I wish Principal Mills was still here, kind of give him a little shout out. He holds himself to a very high bar, I think, as this district does in terms of the robustness of project-based learning and what we want to do and how we want to do it. But I have to say, having been in a lot of middle school classrooms this month, I can't tell you how many students were showing me and describing to me their projects, which incorporate, while it may not be to the full effect that Mr. Mills is really expecting and wanting, incorporate all of the background pieces of it in terms of, the research and the application and the higher level thinking and taxonomy that, really lends itself to that kind of a project, even though it might be, more individualized or whatever, and showing them to me and describing them to me and getting ready to describe them to a class and do all of those great things. I saw maps of Japan that crossed, centuries. I saw, outlines of selves as related to books that children were reading and, making different projects on that and drawing those connections. And all of them were very excited to describe them to me. And it was great to see. So that work is, still alive and well and maybe going on in, the way that it can go on at this moment in time.
That's right.
So it's good stuff.
And you can see how that's going to evolve as we move into the next year.
So for this evening, for my own presentation, one of the things that I do want to do, as always, is show you our data for this month. And I did, at request, kind of give you, the spreadsheet of all of the moves that we've had so far to date, as well as covering kind of where we're at right now. Before I jump into that, I just want to say, one of, I guess, the things that I feel privileged to do is, as you know, we've said this in a previous meeting, that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education hosts an Institute for New Special Ed Directors, and I was asked to, and am monitoring some of those new special ed directors this year. I am a mentor for them. I was at a presentation with them this past Friday, which was a legal presentation, and we were doing some small group work. And of course, we all talked about, some of our challenges, and we're, working with various stakeholders and things like that. And I have to say, what it really brought home for me is just what a privilege it is to work here in Cohasset. It was just so wonderful to be reflective about the school committee, the leadership team, the superintendent in particular, the work that we do together and the way that we do it, the way we all have that common goal, the way that we all work together for it, how closely our leadership team really works together and holds to the strategic plan and moves forward together, and always with the support of the school committee. And it is not necessarily a common. And I just can't tell you how, much more how grateful I am to be able to be here and doing the work with like-minded people and people who will really drive that work, through our superintendent with the support of the school committee. And it's just really a great thing.
And there's my goal review. So. Thank you. Thanks very much.
A couple of things that I do want to highlight before we go into the data sheet. One of them is our expansion of our pre-K program. We are, privileged and happy to say that we are going to be able to look at another classroom in pre-K, which could virtually double our offerings. And it is in the month of February that we actually take all of our pre-K numbers, that we look at that lottery, that we, do our selections and our wait list and so on and so forth. And I'm happy to say that we no longer have a wait list. We were able to
Pending
take-
budget.
Absolutely.
Right. It's the perfect number.
Yes, it is. Yes, it
Assuming
is.
our budget is approved. and-
Correct.
All of that is contingent on that.
So you hear
Absolutely.
that, people?
But in that,
But we have to sign it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are a lot of steps still to go through in that process, but this is what it is looking like. Yes,
But that's-
that is very good news.
So what I'm hearing is as predicted, should our budget be approved and we're able to increase the staffing, we will have no wait list for our pre-K program.
That is our anticipation.
So
Will it be at capacity?
Not at this moment in time, which is also nice because we do need room to grow.
And it will, if you have two sections and more people, say how great it is, it will grow.
I think it'll go.
Yeah, and if people feels like there's a chance to get in, sometimes it feels a little hopeless.
I'm also very excited to meet tomorrow with our new CPAC leadership team and make some plans for upcoming meetings, as well as some ideas I have around, moving forward with some positive opportunities and projects and things that we can do together. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
Who is the new CPAC leadership team?
So it's interesting that you say that. So Allison Ryan is the new CPAC president,
Okay.
and Sarah Davis.
Okay.
is the vice.
Great.
And we will be meeting tomorrow morning at 9:15.
Great.
Strong lady culture. Good stuff.
Love
Yeah.
And if we want to take a little look at the data now.
Sure. Sorry, just something.
Yes, I know, I'm sorry, I
No,
kept
it's my fault.
segueing.
Should let you tell me.
So what you have in your packets, actually, this is a little bit updated, I believe, if you look at it. Sedaj just drew my attention to that over even what you have in your packets. So what we have done is, these are our January numbers. As you can see, our annual review meetings, the elementary, the secondary, the out of district, and our total meetings, typically as we do. Our reevaluation meetings that we look back on, how many did we hold at the elementary level, at the secondary level, and our total number of meetings. Our initial evaluation meetings is where I made some changes so that I could tease out some information that I kind of want to talk through, because this is where we're really looking at our MTSS. And I have had the privilege over the past 2 weeks to attend just about all of the MTSS meetings that have been going on at all of the levels. And I'm happy to say that it is just a wonderful thing to see in progress. When we hold our MTSS meetings, there are initial referrals that come through MTSS, as we know. You can see that at the elementary level, 2 came through MTSS, and those 2 students were found eligible for services this last month. There are also parent referrals. And what I need to really highlight for you is those parent referrals can come from 2 places. And this goes entirely back to our Child Find obligation. In Child Find, we are obligated to identify and to offer evaluation to all Cohasset students of whom we might suspect a disability and or whom are requesting or may need an evaluation, as long as they are Cohasset residents, no matter where they attend school. And this has been perhaps some of the not as transparent information regarding parent requested evaluations.
You say that again? So-
Yes,
So I just.
the child findings.
Yes. that's-
Yes.
And what, no matter where they attend school, so.
Someone could be attending another school, coming into Cohasset Public Schools and request.
So for
So are-
example,
are- Is it possible to be attending a private school as a
Yes.
Cohasset resident and we
Yeah.
still?
yes,
Right, without trying to identify, see, what you do, we don't want to do is identify individuals.
No, I'm just conceptual.
No, I know, but
for example, if we were to think about private schools, if we were to think about places like, let's pretend, Notre Dame Academy, if we were to think about places like,
We all know, you don't have to list schools,
Right.
we
Yep.
know. private schools.
Yeah, Sandy Beach Private School.
exactly, if
Yep.
those students who were attending those schools were Cohasset residents, and there was a concern on the part of their family, we would conduct an evaluation.
That's, you know, what, that, I did not know that.
Yes.
That's an incredible community service.
And they
Yes,
send a letter to you.
but we may never have met that.
That's right, that's the,
right,
That's,
So it's not like we have been working with the, now, I mean, that could happen, of course, but there are many cases, some of which we've articulated already on our previous data. We didn't want to identify kids by talking about that, but we haven't worked with them, so we don't
so
know.
we don't know.
Yep.
But all those parents have to do is give me a call, send some, an email to me, should they so choose to. And we will talk them through the process and move forward and make, like you said, kind of provide that service.
Yep.
And it is an obligation as well of ours that we do take very seriously.
And the
And
result-
there are a lot.
and the result, oh, sorry.
I don't want to say a lot that qualifies it or quantifies it. But people do contact me very regularly.
And what is the result of one of these? Is it, you know, a recommendation or is it like, okay, we will provide services as, I guess, what are the results of these?
Right, so that's an interesting question too. So the results are, in fact, we would conduct an evaluation and we would go through our whole initial evaluation process like we would do for anyone. If in fact the child was determined to have a disability and was not accessing the curriculum and having difficulty making effective progress, we would propose an IEP. And at that point in time also, we would say to the family, these are services that the child could avail themselves of here in Cohasset Public Schools. Oftentimes, depending upon, student schedules, things like that, parents may choose or may not choose to do that. They also have, the right to bring that to whatever school they attend. Private schools do or do not have to hold to that document, but oftentimes, because I'm very old, I find that more and more private schools at least read and take these things into account more so than they did in years past.
May I ask a clarifying question? Because I think I know this answer. And this is for students ages like 3 to 22, right?
Absolutely.
So it's just a huge age range, just for
Yeah.
your information.
Yes.
Because it's after early intervention and up
Yes.
to the oldest qualifying age, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's a good clarifying.
Because I remember when I
100%.
taught preschool, we would have
Yes.
families get involved and then they'd receive services at Osgood, for example, even though their child was at a preschool that's not the Osgood.
Which we do.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yes.
Thank you for that. That's great background.
Absolutely. So what you can see there is what I've tried to show you is under the parent referral. You can see it says CPS, which means it came from a parent within Cohasset Public Schools. It gives you the amount of referrals that came from those parents and also gives you the result. How many were eligible, how many were not eligible as a result of that initial evaluation. And then private. Now, obviously, if it's the elementary level, it could be a student K through 5 who is attending a private school. It also could be a child who's coming out of early intervention and coming into preschool. And we are looking at that. But how many of those were taking place and were those eligible or not eligible? And I think what it does is it shines a clearer light on the work of MTSS. And I think that it is, kind of much more clarifying around that. What we have done, and you have these in your packets, is my team chairs have tried to look back historically and give you some of that data and a historical perspective in the previous months. Not all of that could we go back and find 100% of. We are obviously done it for January.
Would you like?
If you look back to December, you can see that we have it there for December as well. If you look at the elementary one, you can see through MTSS, there were no referrals. Through parents, there were 3 referrals. None of them were Cohasset Public Schools parents. All of them came from private. 2 were eligible and 1 was not eligible. And if you look under the secondary, you can see that 2 referrals came through MTSS there. 1 came from a Cohasset Public School parent. And in this particular box, we could not go back and determine eligibility at the moment in time that this was being done. But we tried to go back and do some historical filling in for you, if we will.
And I can't remember, I think I asked last time, are these made available on the student services website?
No, they are not.
Could they be? We present them in open meeting.
We do present them in open meeting. I
Is it the wish of the school committee to put those on?
I mean, I think a lot of people have appreciated the data. This is I'm one of 5 people in this committee, so.
Our hesitation's always a small district.
Let's talk about it. I think we should consider it. I don't want to necessarily say let's do it now, but I'd like to, if you can think on it and see if there's downsides that we may not be seeing as a community. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and check out the districts, see what they do.
I also think
Just-
the second slide in the
Yes.
deck.
if we could go all the way back,
Yeah, sure.
so.
Before we move on to that on the private thing, one, just, given the sources of these may be other than private schools, if you will, and I don't think that's what you meant necessarily, but maybe change that to other as opposed to CPS and then other. Would that make more sense and be
Sure.
more, because I think it's
Yes.
a broader,
I
Or
agree.
just like outside or non-CPS.
Yeah.
Yeah, non-CPS maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
CPS,
just
non-CPS.
non-CPS.
that way it's a little more,
That would be better.
All right,
And I think we should publish on the website, but talk about that further.
It's a really helpful update, Mrs. Sarwanka. Thank you for adding time.
so yeah, if you wouldn't mind going back to
Sure.
kind of the beginning of this. There we go. So what you can see there is we have the January update in terms of our percentages. And what you can see is that we obviously had a growth of active IEPs at the Joseph Osgood School. The majority of that growth was in our pre-K population. And that is kind of an ongoing thing through early intervention. When students come through and we evaluate and see if they need to receive either services through our pre-K or through our walk-in model. If students just need to receive therapies, as Mrs. St. Ange was talking about before, and perhaps continue at their, preschool, wherever it may be, if it is not ours. And then you can see in the other next 2 schools, the Deer Hill and the middle school, there were, I don't want to say negligible, but very small increases. And at the high school, in fact, that, there was a decrease. There are students who were, coming up for reevaluation, really kind of making the gains that they needed to make in terms of independence, coming off, as we talked, I think, in our last meeting, off the need for services in a celebratory way. And I'm always nice to see that. If you're interested in this slide, Mrs. St. Ange, definitely.
Oh, yeah, I just thought it should be shown and discussed, that's all, because we were kind of starting at the end, and I appreciate these numbers being up here. And I feel like if we're going to share information, it's just helpful to have all of the information shared.
Sure.
Yes.
thank you. Anything further on your report?
Just as I said, I really had the honor of visiting all of the different schools' MTSS meetings over the last couple of weeks to kind of go in and see, how we're progressing. And I have to say, the vertical alignment And, all of the things that we've talked about with MTSS, we're really seeing just, they always were strong, but they're so much more robust and such data-driven information. And it's just wonderful to see the teams working and to be able to visit those and watch it in action and watch it continue to grow and develop. We have one of our MTSS steering committee meetings when we come back from February vacation. And we're very excited to continue to work on this, seeing the results of this play out live and continue to move forward in this area.
It's a system,
It is.
which is the first step.
Yep.
All right, and I didn't mean to imply that I thought your report was insufficient. I just wanted to make sure you were finished. All right. So,
Yes.
Mr. Kearney.
No comments, just, I think that we've made such good progress in this area. It's just so nice to see information, the team that we have in place, to see that you're mentoring other schools. And it's nice to hear.
And we're very proud of that fact.
So,
I just appreciate the ever-evolving report that you are putting together. I think together we're able to really shine a light on this process and talk about it much more in depth than we were even a few months ago. And just sharing some information that perhaps those of us on the inside take for granted, and it's important to share it with people who aren't working within the school system. So I feel like that is becoming more clear in this data. So thank you.
Mr. McCollum?
Mr. Chair, no questions or comments. Thank you very much.
Mr. Swan, from my end, I echo Ms. St. Andrew's comments. I very much like this report. I think this has come a very long way. And I very much appreciate your clarifications on some of the things that you've seen us circle around as we've had these meetings in the past. One question, and I seem to recall a old report where we talked about survey results, people coming back.
Yes.
Is that something that's still on your radar to present, or is that, I mean, they were always seem to be fairly good, so I was just, was that intentionally left off this time, or do we, I just ask?
So I will tell you, if you recall, we talked about in one of our last meetings, I really streamlined
Yep.
that parent survey form. The returns on it are better than ever in terms of the amount of returns, which is really great to see. And I have to say, 96% of the returns have been all in high positive range. And I can continue to, report on those in more specifics in upcoming meetings if you would like. Last year, it really was, targeted areas where we really wanted to look and see, what we needed to do and put things in place to address and answer those things. And this year, it really feels a little different. It feels like, we kind of accomplished some of that goal. So I think you're right. I think I pulled back kind of on some of that reporting as I was seeing such consistency in those survey results, but I'm happy to continue to do it.
I like seeing it just because it shows a continued, like when you're getting the 96% satisfaction range, that's good. And then also, if you start to see that slip, then maybe triggers for things to change or things to look at. So I would like to continue to see those. I thought they were valuable.
Also patterns of like in the 4% that's perhaps dissatisfied. Obviously, we don't want to say anything that would identify a family, but what are patterns that we're seeing that we can help support and change, right? Because the negative feedback is perhaps even more meaningful,
Yes.
right? Like,
Yes.
it's great to have a good job, but how can we change and support better support?
So thank you, Mr. Wonka, very, very helpful report. Now, next on our agenda is the superintendent mid-cycle review. Do we want to see if the committee wants to switch?
I would be amenable to that, just because we have Mr. Fisher.
So with the committee's permission, we've got a custodial review from Mr. Tusher on, he's just arrived. So with the committee's permission, I'd like to switch these two agenda items. Any concerns?
I think that's fine. Do we have to vote?
I'm not gonna call for a vote. We'll just do it right next to each other. So With that, we'll go, Mr. Fisher, welcome. Thank you very much for
How you guys
coming.
doing?
He's like- And now, Mr. Tusher, just to be clear, is more here to answer questions. I think
Yes.
we're gonna let Sue kind of give the overview. But just want to thank publicly. I'll get a chance, sometimes, I don't get a chance to thank staff publicly,
Right.
but the great work that Mr. Tusher has done for many years here in Glassett. Clearly an asset to our community and our school community, leading the custodial team. So thank you for being here and all you do.
And thank you for coming. It's also very important for us to see the human beings who are here.
Yeah.
So we very much appreciate your willingness to, so Ms. Owen, I'll turn it over to you if you'll lead.
Sure. So, Paul Fisher, our head custodian, has been here how many years?
This is year 18.
18 years. So over the course of a few years back, we have seen lots of changes. Very responsive, painting going on and all kinds of repairs and just lots of changes. Worked really hard as a team through the COVID. Had to work double time, just with cleaning situation. Busy. I don't know if you want to, everything you want to highlight and tell us about, but it's been a great opportunity.
A few things just to kind of, because I think there's two kind of points that one of the, I think Vice Chair McClellan had initially asked for this. And one was, we had that report that was done some years ago regarding the amount of custodial staff we were short and what we needed to do to buttress that staff so we could indeed go ahead and be a fully functioning school district with our custodial staff. And then there was a matter of, again, when I talked about systems, creating systems, we had systems in place, but it was a lot of just getting them on paper, making sure we knew exactly what we were doing with our cleaning routines, with our tasks. And then as we moved into the contract negotiations, making sure that we were all on the same page with what our custodians are doing with the, in terms of their role with our facilities team and our DPW team. So all of that is sort of played out into what you see now. And in my goal review, I actually did put the duties of the custodians at each level. So that gives you the opportunity, if you didn't be on that, to go back and do so. And, a lot of it also has to do with the outside now, and making sure we're doing the outside and that we have a real good idea of where our work on the outside ends and begins and where the DPW's ends and begins. And I'm going to knock on wood because we've got kind of a light winter, but a lot of that has to do with the winter season and the storms we have. And then it also has to do with fall cleanup and spring cleanup as well. So those are just issues that are swirling around. So just to give you some context about some of the things, you might want to talk about in terms of how we are and where we are. And then I know the committee will have questions.
Just to add to that, we had to define, our roles were kind of blurred with the DPW. and
Right.
facilities, so who should be doing what, so that was kind of where we started, let's define
It's huge. Yeah.
who's responsible for what, and then there was, let's still a little gray area in the middle.
Yeah,
But we pretty much worked that all out,
yeah, for the
as
most part.
well.
Yeah, like we're doing with the courtyards and the small areas of the landscaping. That's something that in my 18 years, we never did any of it. It was never part of our job description. It was always tree and park. And DPW would do like the parking lots, signage, things of that nature. And then the tree and park did all the landscaping. We never did any of it until this year. Really. And I've got a lot of my staff really enjoys doing it. We including myself, because most of the time it was just way overgrown. It wasn't looking good either. I mean, all year round, really. And now that we're doing it, we're taking great pride in it. We want to continue doing it. And I think it's showed a great change here as far as the school is, to this point.
Might be a good topic, actually, just to talk a little bit about how, you just mentioned DPW and custodians, but how the custodial duties differ from facilities, because the facilities does support us. Can you talk a little bit about that, Bob?
Like as far as,
Just some of the tasks that you do that they don't, and then some of the tasks they do that you don't.
and then a lot of that was kind of gray area too, where, you know, who does the ceiling tiles when they're stained from leakage, or who replaces those, or, you know, we'll do those. We do those, but at one point it was like, who does what here?
Right, right,
Light bulbs, which there are very few of because they're all LEDs now. We used to do that. And then there's like, you know, always times when things need to be, say, hung like a whiteboard on a wall, or taken off a wall, or all sorts of things like that. At the beginning, nobody knew who was doing what or why, but I think we've pretty much defined who does what now. We work together as a team.
Some of the
So
keys
far.
as I learned in working with them to differentiate was, if something deals with a system, like a
Yeah.
plumbing system or an electrical system,
That would-
that goes to facilities.
Yes.
And facilities works with also, obviously outside vendors if they need to procure them to do that. But everything else, the smaller things, and I don't mean to say
Yeah.
they're small, because there's a massive amount of work the custodians do to keep things clean and upgraded, but I'm just talking about like, you know, replacing a part or replacing,
Yeah.
doing something, a broken chair or something, or
You know, like whiteboards that we
Right.
hang up plaques on the wall. And I think right now, probably, we do probably 80% of the painting in the building.
yes.
And when I first started here, that's another thing. The custodians really didn't do any of that.
Yeah.
That wasn't even part of our job description when I started here for many years. For me, being a painter in my earlier years, a lot of times I'd say, I'll paint that. But I mean, you know, now I think we do probably, was it a couple summers ago, we painted 50 classrooms.
You did, well, just look at the middle
You
school.
know,
I mean, if you, well, it's interesting, I know that Mr.
Yeah.
Kearney recently, was in the middle school, and you can see how different it is.
Yeah.
When, you know, it's just remarkably, brought to life and colorful and clean and, all the things that Mr. Kearney and I had talked about years ago.
Yeah, and if we could, Sue can share through her leadership, which I'll give you her credit for, and the community coming together in some of these meetings that we've had, and subcommittee meetings. We've come up with a list of whose responsibilities are what. And I think this has been paramount to the success that we've all seen, because now pretty much everybody knows what the Parks Department did. So that, just that even one meeting that we had, I know you've had so many more during it.
Yeah.
But I did want to show you.
So, yeah, this is what we put together.
Oh, great.
And we met, collaboratively,
I'm gonna move up a little bit.
facilities.
No, move up, just, you get their cell phones there, so you just move up. I think you want to give a
So
whole,
down.
Yeah.
sorry,
Just the other way.
scroll down, you don't want to give the town their cell phones.
Just call us.
My up is
Yeah.
publicly posted.
So this is a good oversight of what was put together. And it was pretty cleverly done, and I can tell you that you were already starting to see the results.
Yeah, because there was a lot of blurred
Oh,
areas, like, you know,
always was.
for shoveling, shoveling,
Yeah.
who does the sidewalks, who does immediately around the buildings. Light bulbs,
Everything
who
like that.
changes the light bulbs? It's a facility, but, that's a task that custodians can, they can
Yes.
change a light bulb.
If you, as you scroll down, column A is DPW, C is facilities, and E is the custodians.
Yeah, and like for the 18 years I've been here, it's never been so defined. It's never been defined as well as it is right now. It's never been to this point, which is great. It's really clear cut and dry as to who should be doing what. In the past, it was never, nobody knew who was on first, really. You know, and so now, this is great. I mean,
Right down to, individual buildings, individual custodians, who's in what wing at what time doing what. So
Yeah.
now we have a very
Right.
organized schedule, so one, if we have a new employee come in, they know exactly what area they're doing and what task they're doing, or if we need to find Bob, in an emergency, pretty much by his responsibilities, gain an idea that he's probably in the middle school hallway.
That's right.
Um,
And we're doing more frequent, Sue is leadership walks with Bob and with the league custodian.
Correct.
Right.
So once a
Yeah,
week,
head league. You're the head custodian.
Yeah,
That's right. I get my own
Yeah.
term
That
mixed
was
up.
another thing we did with the contract.
Yes.
those are
We
new.
put in
That's
levels.
new.
We made one head custodian who's in charge of,
All
all the
custodians,
buildings.
right.
And then there's a lead in each building.
Because more often than not, like Ted Holland, for example, down at Osgood, he's there during the day, things pop up and Teddy would find himself, in essence, doing it all anyway, you know what I mean? So it's good that he was made the lead custodian because he's actually been doing the job anyway.
And the other thing we put in was frequent meetings with these three groups.
Yes.
And actually have one today, correct?
That was today. Yes, that was today.
Yeah.
You did have one, right?
And we did, yeah, we did
Yeah.
that one too.
Facilities update, yeah.
Yes.
We had facilities update.
Those are good, and the principal and the lead custodian attends that with, I often am there, but not always there, but Sue is always there, and as is Bob. And then, of course, our facilities team, which is a subsect of the DPW, obviously, in some ways, they work together, but, and then if needed, we would have Brian or Carl or Sandra from the DPW there.
How often are those stuff, so?
Were they every month or
Every month, once a month.
once a
yeah.
month?
Yeah, and most every day I talk to, at least every day or every other day, I talk to my lead at Osgood via text or,
Yep.
and then same with David Kelly down at Deer Hill. But I probably could try to get down there more often during the day, but the problem is I'm at 3 to 11.
Right, and then, and Bob is also constantly talking to the leads here too, so.
Yeah, always. So I mean, I try to stay plugged in with everybody to find out the day to day, the week to week, upcoming events, things of that nature, any questions they have or things they may need to make their job easier and everything.
And we try once a week to hit a building, so it would be Bob, myself, the building principal, and the lead custodian of that building, and we walk the buildings.
And
Just to
that's
see what
new.
areas, what areas need to be focused on, or, other things that we're missing, other things that the custodian needs, that they're not thinking to bring forward to us, and, so we're doing that, and then we come together, like today, we had facilities person there, and we had the principals were all there with their head custodian as well, I mean, their lead custodian as well as the Bob, so we talk about everything in general as a group of what's going on, what's going on with February break, who's gonna be in what buildings, what are the plans for going on, what's going on during
And
February.
special projects.
And another thing we've upgraded too is before every break, and I know that will probably come from Sue in the next day or two, we send out a memo to all the principals, making sure they understand everything that's happening in their buildings over break, because there's a lot of moving pieces when you have a town facilities team who's doing a lot of different things. So so there's no surprises, and everybody's on the same page. Often our principals are here during break, but sometimes they're not because they could be taking vacation.
So in the interest of time, 'cause we still have a number of things to do.
Maybe stop sharing that.
Just there, what I wanted to see if there's anything else you want to share for us. One of the motivating factors for us having this on the agenda item is that in our budget process, we have included a request for an additional custodian. Dr. Sullivan referred to a prior study that we had done. And so one of the things that we wanted to talk about a little bit, or get a real view on from on the ground is, our capabilities and our resources and what we're able to accomplish with the staff we have now and what we're not able to accomplish with the staff we have now. So if you could address that, and then we'll open up the committee for questions.
I think having an extra body it would be very valuable for, like I say, we've been, we're now doing all the landscape and having that extra hand out there would be tremendous because it's a big area that we do. And with all the extra projects, we have like the painting. I mean, there's a lot of painting that needs to be done, and having the person there, I mean, it would be very valuable to have someone there to help out and be able to section off the school. I give that person a section of the school. And it would free up, us to do other things, you know what I mean? So if other projects come up, it would make us, be able to get done a little quicker. So maybe if we have to merge onto another project as a team, we would be able to do it quicker and address whatever might be happening or going on, like, because there is a need, there's a need of having an extra body is always, valuable for us, And it's a big place.
It's a big place.
Yeah, and there's a lot going on really all the time.
So let me open it up for the committee. I'm gonna go in random order again, Ms. St. Ange.
I don't have any specific questions for you, but I do appreciate you being here and filling us in. And I feel like the changes that have happened over the past few years seem really effective. And they just calm my nerves. I don't know about you, but I really like knowing who's supposed to do what and when they're supposed to do it. So I feel like having that in a job description is very like settling to me. But I'm not a custodian, but it would calm my nerves if I was.
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Grateful, thankful. I can tell you, in 4.5 years that I've been sitting in the seat, I've never seen so much progression and knowing exactly. I guess for me, it was probably frustration for the first couple of years of being a member and saying, driving up and seeing leaves in front of the building and just stressing me out. Like, because that's what I do facilities.
Yeah.
And your leadership and just the overall enthusiastic of your staff is overwhelming, especially the fact that, and again, we did a study, just so everybody knows in the community, 3 years ago when we were negotiating contract, the custodians asked if we would do a study to see how many custodians they would need per building. And we still, as a community, have not held to that bargain because you are owed a custodian due to that study. So I do want to make that point that we are trying in our budget to do that this coming budget process. And I just know that because I think pain goes a long way. I think you get a lot of bang for your buck. Especially as drive every day through here in that outside white.
Yeah,
Needs to, I think if we painted that, it would just.
it would really pop, yeah.
But I want to thank you for all you've done and really, I'm looking forward to just continuing to work.
Thank you so much, me too.
Vice Chair McCollum?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Tucci, thanks so much for being here. I had requested a custodial review and for you to be here. And the reasons for that were threefold. One is, I just wanted to thank you personally and your team because having served on this committee throughout the COVID years, I became acutely aware, and there are many groups that comprise the staff at Cohasset Public Schools, custodial staff, one of those groups. I became acutely aware of which groups could do and would do during those times, and which groups couldn't do and wouldn't do. And leading the charge for the groups that could do and would do were absolutely hands down our custodial staff, which there was a lot of additional duties and expectations placed on you unceremoniously. And you guys embraced those with, as Mr. Kearney put it, with enthusiasm, with absolutely every concern for the kids first and not for yourselves. Even early on, when everyone was very concerned and nervous and not, fairly uncertain about, how contagious this thing was and what it could do to you, there really wasn't, it was a concern to make sure that the school was still operating as well as it could. And I just remember that picture that Dr. Sullivan took of you with the spray gun.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
And it just,
The face shield.
it's right, it just seems so, outrageous that you'd all of a sudden have to do that, and you didn't blink an eye, and when I say you, I mean your entire staff, and so, just personally, thank you. I never had a chance to really say that, I want to say it publicly. The second reason was to ask you, I recently became very interested in the custodial services because there were some issues with the Deer Hill bathrooms, and it made me think, and that's just one small facet of what you guys do, but it made me think of whether or not there was a more systematic approach to really scrutinizing, and perhaps it's at these weekly building walks, I don't know, but I really want the custodial staff to scrutinize these facilities as much as possible, because you guys do a great job, I think, working with what you have and keeping things as clean as possible. That said, a lot of these components of our buildings are aging. And for you guys, you see it every single day you're working with these things. So it's like, it doesn't jump out at you as much. So I want to make sure our custodial staff is scrutinizing these as much as possible. So when Mrs. St. Ange and I walked, for example, the Deer Hill path, okay? And, you know, some of them had been clean, some of them hadn't, and you could tell the ones that were clean were in pretty good shape. But that said, they were like, you know, old dirty toilet seats, or maybe some of the toilet paper dispensers were getting a little like ratty looking. So, you know, maybe the stalls could have been painted or
Dirty,
some-
like worn out,
Yeah,
just to clarify.
That's right, that's what I mean, okay, so like, yeah, like, maybe more like stained, you know,
Yeah.
like sort of aging, like you picture something that's like, you know, was once white is now off-white, right?
Yeah.
That sort of thing, and we just, we can replace that stuff, because these things aren't that expensive to do, right? And we have the operating, so I just wanna make sure that, and this is not poking fault at all,
Yeah.
I mean, I have nothing
No, I
against the
understand.
department. But I think that like, let's scrutinize stuff as much as possible. And then form some sort of list where, you know, it's, I don't know, maybe there's like every component listed at each building or something. Just every week you go, oh yeah, we look, the toilet seats looking good, or the stalls looking good, or the tiles in the floor looking good, the ceiling tile is looking good, whatever, however you decide to do it.
Yeah.
But making sure that regularly, okay, we're making sure that like, you know, the chairs and learning commons, they're all looking like they're in ship shape, or
Yeah.
do we need 5 or half a dozen more that could be replaced, you know?
yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I
I think
think,
those walks are, as you said.
and so that's probably the time to do it, but when you're doing them, right? When you're doing them, just be as critical as possible, you know, like imagine that money wasn't a thing and like what, you know, it is, but like pretend it isn't, so that you're finding fault and you try and find fault.
You're not hesitant as to say what you really would need.
Right.
Hinges and latches.
Yeah, hinges
And
and
we do that.
latches, stalls, the actual partitions.
Exactly.
I mean, some of them are rusty on the bottom.
Exactly,
you
yeah,
know.
and bathrooms get a, you
Yeah.
know, and they're
The
just
faucetry
easy
is-
target
it
because
is.
they're bathrooms, but
Yeah,
they're everywhere.
Yeah.
If you can just keep that in mind, and, you know, and Ms. Owen, perhaps you can not necessarily report on it, but maybe create some sort of, you
List.
know, report from your walks and share them with us, like, you know, something
Absolutely.
like offline, so we have them. That'd be helpful.
And we
Um,
talked about, sorry.
Yeah.
No, go
We
ahead.
talked about that today, actually,
Yeah.
because the break's coming up.
Great.
We said, okay, we want to focus on bathrooms.
Great.
Get a list of, you know.
rusty things, the toilet
Mirrors needs
seats.
to be replaced, the
Right.
toilet seats, they've already.
There's mirrors that are delaminating, so they look like
So they're focusing on the
parts of the
bathrooms.
edges and
Over
stuff
the
like that.
Yeah, no,
There's
it's
a lot of that.
because I will say,
There's a tremendous amount.
Mrs. St. Ange, that after the walk and we had that discussion and it sort of people started thinking about it, I immediately received feedback from those parents that had raised concerns saying, hey, thanks. The kids have noted that the bathrooms look better. And that's the type of quick, you know, palpable, tangible responsiveness that really matters, I think, to folks, you know? So.
You can actually go in the stall and lock it,
Right.
feel safe.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, there was a lot of that.
So that was one thing, just to raise that concern. And then lastly, I'm just wondering, and this is probably the main reason that I wanted you to come here. I'm very interested in your perspective in terms of, things that you don't have that you need, you know, shortcomings that you see. And I don't necessarily want to put you on the spot, hey, Mr. Tucci, rattle off 7 things that, you know, that you don't have that you need. But, you know, certainly if there are things in your mind, please tell us. But we have like a student representative that comes in here every meeting, right? And they give us a very candid sort of, you know, unrefined version of what the students are thinking. And that's why it's so valuable to us. 'Cause it's like, you know, okay, this is great. I'd love the same thing from the custodial staff, and I don't necessarily expect you, I actually didn't expect you to be here so quickly.
Yeah,
I just brought this up last meeting, so, the chairperson and the superintendent got right on that, but, so I don't expect you to be prepared, but if you
Yeah.
could start thinking critically, and obviously, I think one of the things we've already discovered is that we could use another body, so that's why we're asking
Yeah.
for that.
yeah, that would be number one.
But in addition to that, if there are some
Yeah.
tools that you could use, if there are
Yeah.
some, you know, you know, certain cleaning materials, if there are anything, I don't know,
Snow blowers,
refrigerators
yeah.
for the staff to keep their stuff in, whatever it
Yeah.
may be, okay?
Yeah.
If you could please let us know through Ms. Owen,
Okay,
and that can be on a regular basis or during your walkthroughs, so that Ms. Owen can share that with us. We really, really want, you are the masters of these facilities. You are in here every day, you know, every nook and cranny, Mr. Tushar.
Yeah.
And I really, really want your feedback on what you need in order to do your job as well as you can.
excellent. Yeah, I will. And, you know, I'll put it out to all my staff, like,
Yeah.
Yes.
How can I make your job
Yes,
better?
exactly,
How can I make
Exactly.
things work better for us
Exactly.
as a team?
exactly. And
Because
then,
I have a great team. I have an excellent
You do.
staff. I really do. I mean, all buildings. I mean, I'm very blessed with the staff. Everyone's enjoys their job. It shows. And,
What I meet almost every day.
yeah, I'll
Um,
pop down and,
So we've gone over some of those things, like, you know, I think you asked past you, a couple of snow blowers.
yeah.
Like, they didn't have, they didn't,
They're
and
getting
same with the
old and beat up.
landscaping. They, you know, they put the landscaping on us, but
Yeah, we didn't have any tools for landscaping.
we didn't have
I mean,
any
zero.
tools for it, so,
They had maybe a grain shovel and a
Oh,
rake,
this
you
is
know?
exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
And so,
I did give me okay to go. Yeah.
So that's great, so the smaller things, but maybe there's some larger things that maybe there needs to be approval or something on, and like, I just
Yeah.
please don't be afraid to do it, right?
okay,
So just as you're scrutinizing the facilities, excuse me, scrutinize your own resources as well, and make sure Ms. Zone knows, so that she can let us know with bigger things, obviously, she's
Yeah.
able to authorize
Yeah.
it. You know, snow blower and
I
stuff.
sure
but
will, yeah. I'll
Okay.
put it up to my staff too. How can
That'd
I
be
make
great.
their job easier?
That would be
How can I
great.
make it work better?
That would be awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time.
Welcome. And I'll just step back from Vice Chairman Collins' point. I guess what I'd say is you have the full support of this committee to make our facilities as good as they can be. It is very important to the members individually. I think I speak on behalf of members individually and the committee as a whole, that we have an educational environment for our students that makes them want to come to school. And it is the little things like the delaminating mirrors, the rust on the bottom of the toilets, the, you know, the stained ceiling tiles. These things, you know, if gone unchecked, can ultimately impact the experience of people. They feel like the school is not a priority just because of, you know, if there's lights out, you know, you don't have that as much anymore with LEDs, but
Yeah,
so we do want you to feel empowered and supported by this committee to have what you need to continue to provide us with, and our kids with the best facilities that we can have at this point, until we drop a brand new building on here. But so
Yeah.
please keep an open
Thank you.
dialogue, and someone will definitely keep us surprised. And if there are things that seem, even if they seem, you know, outlandish, you know, it's something to think about, because we do want, I mean, just, you are taking on a lot of responsibility. Mr. Kearney has never been happier about not having leaves in the vestibules as we're
Yeah.
coming in.
It is a popular leaf
I
place.
am
I gotta tell you.
it's a collect
Like,
all.
you really have to keep up.
It was almost built like a castle here,
Yeah.
It-
you know,
yeah.
it blows in.
A lot of nooks and crannies,
Oh.
the leaves love.
They love to just keep coming in.
Yeah.
It's a little
Well,
busy.
thank you.
Please keep that in mind, and
Thank you
thank
very
you
much.
for all you do. and all
Thank you
do
very
for
much.
us. Great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you. Have a great night.
All
Sure.
right.
Take care.
All right, so we'll switch back to our superintendent mid-cycle review. Given we're at the 8 o'clock hour, I'm going to try to be a little more disciplined on time. Superintendent, your review is one of the most important things we can do, but do you think maybe 10 minutes would be a good?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'll go very, well, because I've given you this and you have the ability to go in, and this is, again, it's mid-cycle. So really, the
This is a check.
design of this is a check-in to get input on where I am and where I'm going, and it doesn't have to stop, you know, from here. So I'm gonna go very high level. I'm actually not even gonna open any document unless you instruct me to, and then I would gladly do that. But if I can begin.
Absolutely. The floor is yours.
The first point is I just wanted you to see where we are in the process. So the first step, again, is the superintendent self-assessment, which we did coming into the year, along with cycle 2, which was the analysis, goal setting and plan development in the public meetings. We've already done that at a public meeting that included the goal setting. So where we are now is cycle step 3 and cycle step 4. Cycle step 3 is that I implement the plan, which I've been doing since we designed it in August and September, with the assistance from the committee as appropriate, and that we're collecting evidence. So I'm collecting evidence and you're collecting evidence in any way you see fit to fulfill, you know, whatever the need is for my final report, which is, you know, something you'll put together with my assistance, of course. Step 4 is where exactly we sit right now, the mid-cycle goal review And at this public meeting, which is right now, and again, it says series of meetings, so if there was something you wanted me to show you more of, I can come back next meeting and do that. I report on progress being made on the goals in the annual plan. Okay, and you can offer feedback and any mid-cycle adjustments that I need to make. And then we just simply move to the end of cycle, which is the last step in the cycle, where you, in a public meeting, provide a summary report for me, which not only talks about my success or lack of success, hopefully the first or the former, on my goals, but looks at the standards for being an effective superintendent and provides input on that for me. So without further ado, I'm just gonna, again, just recap my goals and talk about a little bit of the progress and some of the artifacts that I've shared without going into the artifacts unless you indeed want me to. So the first goal.
Just one point, or we did have, just for the committee's minutes, we did have a subcommittee meeting of the governance committee to go over this in detail. So that information has been brought in and we had no substantive comments at that subcommittee. So, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much
For that. So the first goal again was, these are all in conjunction with the compass points of our strategic plan. So there are 5 compass points. So the first compass point is teaching and learning. And this one, it's really an array of teaching and learning needs that we've articulated in our strategic plan and that we're continuing to dip into throughout the year. Focusing the district on the implementation of the elementary comprehensive literacy approach, K-5. I do promise a review on that formally within the next few meetings. We just need to determine the proper time where we'll have kind of a forum on that. Middle school science open SciEd program. Thank you, Principal Mills, for actually talking about that because that's one of my goals. A computer science pathway. You saw some remnants, some input from Principal Scott on that in the meeting today. And the curriculum review process, phase 1 for math, you heard something about that today. And the arts K-12 and the data that indicates areas of need, which obviously we've been working on, and the school committee's done a really great job of making sure we're focused on that too. So thank you, that's important. The key actions, you can see them without even reviewing all of them. They really tie in with that goal. Our work with Teaching Learning Alliance, our data analysis. Again, we're finding that sometimes when you get into these goals, it tells you what else you need. So as we had the opportunity to advocate for a director of data, curriculum and evaluation, that came from this work. As we're really looking at data and analyzing data, we're seeing that there's a more granular look is needed, and we're going to have someone who's going to do that work. All of this lines up with the goal. Open SciEd work, creating essential questions in both the arts and math, and then working with our computer science pathways. So some of the benchmarks that I've provided data in regards to our professional development plan, and that here you can see for TLA, this is in literacy. If you clicked on these, you'd see sample schedules for that professional development. And then data. We've done a lot. We've done data dialogues at every school building. We've had to do some refreshing and training with our administrators to make sure we can do that properly. There's more work to be done there, and I think having a person pick that up is going to be helpful. The MCAS overview presentation, that's basically the first one we did on the data, and then down here is the data points showing areas that need an action plan, which we're fully implementing as we move here. iReady diagnostic professional development. I think there's going to be a time for this committee when we're able to provide you with iReady data and really talk about some of the progress we've made with that iReady data. Just coming up, we have a data day. I think it's either when we come back at Deer Hill, and then for ELA, and I know we have one on the 17th of March for math. But everyone's doing a lot more data analysis, and we're putting together a nice data package. Evidence of frequent meetings throughout the year, reading specialist meetings. Leslie meets with them frequently, and that they're in here. We had a wonderful math and literacy night at Osgood. We have an SEL night coming up. Deer Hill Literacy Night is tomorrow night. Very excited about that. And then we have some iReady reporting being sent at all levels, but this is the documents that are being sent at the middle school upcoming. They've just been sent. And then here's more evidence about Open Syed, the essential questions, again, all tying into the key actions. These are the benchmarks. And then you can see as you go down, the robotics, evidence computer science, remember the robotics program, and we have selected curriculum for that. And then our math self-study is still to be done, and our art self-study. That's a document that really tells us where we're moving, and that's all from the work that we're doing with our curriculum review for arts and math. And you'll see an update of the middle school science curricula, which I know that John just talked about. And the arts curricula will have quite a bit on that as well from the work we're doing. And then the science pathway as well. So that's the first goal. Do you want any questions of the goal? You want me to do all the goals?
Why don't we just run through them in the interest of time? All
You
questions.
got it, you got it. How's my pacing, okay?
Yeah,
Alright.
because I think that's the meatiest of the goal. And I'll just offer the committee, we did spend about close to an hour.
Yeah.
Going through these, and it's, if you haven't spent a lot of time with the submission that he provided me in advance, it's very thorough and has a lot of links to actual specific evidence of these things, so it's worth spending more time on.
The next one ties into what we were just speaking of. This has to do with creating systems regarding transportation, facilities, looking at our learning spaces, updating those, our technology, and of course, our facility systems. And you can see establishing and implementing a district-wide strategy. Again, it's about, this is a real systems goal for recruiting a more diverse staff, and is actually, to Lydia's credit, brought up something in my mind about using utilizing alumni who want to be teachers from our MECO program to try to foster a recruitment scenario where we're bringing them to us. And actually, I've already brought this forward to Elisa to bring to Millie's attention. Millie is the CEO of MECO, to see if we really should have one for the whole MECO
Right,
program.
like an alumni network, I feel like would be such a
So
valuable
powerful.
resource.
But anyway, and then we have work with the facilities. We've done this to foster a progression in MSBA into the process. And Vice Chair McClellan, I know you offered to kind of lend a hand with this, but I'm hoping maybe we get together after the break to formalize the submission of the SOA. We did that last time together, so I figured it would be a good team effort to do that again. So thank you for that. But that will be submitted shortly, and of course soon. Can't really submit it soon. So continue the technology pilot work and our learning space creation. That's continuing. Budget resource subcommittee to address budget needs regarding facilities. Mr. Kearney's on that, as Mr. Carr. That's been a very positive and effectual group, I would say. Continue to improve facilities processes. You heard about some of that. Advanced parking plans for the district school buses. Continue to improve food services. We're doing that. I'm on the food subcommittee. We'll be eating lunch tomorrow at Osgood. Yeah, Osgood. Ensure the custodians fulfill their new responsibility. There we go. Look at that. Right. We just had an update on that, so I won't get into that. So here we are as the benchmarks. Again, I talked about that alumni. We have a Curry College Career Fair that I believe Principal Mills and Principal Farrell are attending to help promote Cohasset schools and the other positions we have. We did obviously run a senior study visit presentation, and I did put back in the statement of interest to the MSBA because the senior study visit presentation, which I, for all intents and purposes, organized with a lot of help, but I organized it and I delivered the presentation to that team from MSBA, and that's in there. Evidence of continued technology pilot program. You can see that in our capital requests for the middle school panels that we're using, which we're looking at one right now, actually. So it's kind of nice. The evidence of agendas and outcomes for the Budget and Resource Subcommittee and then the Food and Nutrition Subcommittee I provided. And here are your, as I referenced, the duties for each of the custodial teams at each of the buildings. That's new. I didn't put the document that Sue put on the screen, but I could have, that was actually something we did that's been effective as well. Bus parking lot diagram, which you've seen a few times. And then the parking study that Glenn Pratt put together working with Sue. So that's very, very good evidence in the school as well. And then if you remember, one of the things I was asked to do by the committee was to present on the future and what we might be looking at in terms of the future. I did do that presentation and put it in here with the cost analysis. And then I felt I needed to, in the school, just reference all of the safety work we've done, continue to do. And I got to tell you, we've had some tough moments this year, and having these crisis teams, knowing what they're doing and being able to reach out to the resources like Riverside, and having Ms. Swanka lead that has been really, really helpful. So these have been good goals. Some of them we haven't needed to use yet, thankfully. And but we do have protocols in place if it comes down to it. And this goes right back to that first meeting we had in this room with our police and fire and emergency responders. So that's all that. Goal 3, it has to do with social and emotional wellness, but what I really focused on was the idea, and this is again in conjunction with our strategic plan, building equity, cultural responsive teaching, inclusivity, and I think I'm constantly updating you on things we're doing in the, for lack of a better term, at this hour in the district. I did just earlier in the sort of the first presentation I did today. But you can see the use of technology to increase the connection to the global community. I just showed you a slide of working with that author. We used we had used the ViewSonic like this to have a meeting with an author virtually in a whole auditorium of kids. We were able to talk about that author's book. We're doing this a lot, and that was a really nice holdover from COVID. There aren't a lot of nice holdovers.
Yeah, that's great.
This is a good one. So we're continuing that. I talked about the strategy that falls in here too, because it's about a diverse hiring process. Culture responsive look-fors, we do that. We have a whole set of look-fors. Remember, we've done this for 2 years now. We do learning walks regularly, and we're stretching this out with a bunch of groups, and we're looking at student engagement, classroom environment, and then we're also looking at cultural responsive look-fors. So I provided all that in terms of evidence. You can see all the learning walk look-fors, the calendar that we've done with learning walks, which is now stretching out to specialists and department chairs and curriculum review members. The fantastic professional development that Dr. Ray Porch did with our team around culturally responsive teaching. I put some of the efforts that our principals are doing at the local level in terms of fostering culturally responsive teaching, and some of the feedback memos. So, and then of course our process in math and arts in the curriculum review cycle. Goal number 4 is really about a family engagement as a higher level to just communication. And we're working on this. This one is a continued effort and work. Part of the key to strong family engagement is you have to have staff buy-in. It can't just be done by a principal like saying, oh, we're going to do this. It really, in order to be effective family engagement, you have to work with your staff to hear their thoughts, to go over any of the obstacles that might be in the way there, and really get buy-in to particular activities and processes that are effective to engage families. And you have to listen to the families about what's effective. So that's some of the surveying we're doing and will be doing. Remember, we're all doing a school improvement plan coming up. And part of that will be, and this is to Mr. Kearney's credit, a uniform survey across all schools that will gauge family engagement. So we have some of that here. And then just going down to the benchmarks, Um, Here are the plans. You know, you click on these, you can see some of the plans. They're articulated differently, but they do have information there for you. And we keep going down. I gave you an example of the family survey in there, if you want to get a preview. We have a volunteer committee that we've been creating. We've done substitute orientation at our buildings. And our wellness committee, which I know Mr. Kearney serves on, has been a really vigorous and vital committee this year. I love that the students are on it. And I think they've been a great addition from what I understand. I'm not surprised, but the agendas are there. All of our school council agendas are there. I think Osgood only has one there, but the rest of them have a full component of school council agendas. And I will add those. It's just my fault I haven't added them. Evidence of cohesive communication structures. These are our newsletters. And remember, Twitter, I know, is somewhat of a dying social media outlet, but we're on Twitter all over the place. Like Twitter's a nice mode for education. It's really a good way to share things. And so we're constantly tweeting various aspects and things we're proud of in the school. And the final goal has a lot to do with the work that Mrs. Sawanka has done. And this has to do with MTSS, social emotional wellness, and we're focused on MTSS from a student perspective, obviously, but also from a staff system perspective, giving them professional development, ensuring that our staff knows about the MTSS strategy, ensuring that they understand how to use data to drive this, reinforcing proactive and consistent communication regarding interventions through our letters. Again, I can't say enough of really how appreciative we are that you have your finger on the pulse, thumb on the pulse, as you will. This is important stuff, and the evidence is here in the benchmarks. You can see the professional development in the task force, all of the ways we support students through MTSS, all of the letters and the spreadsheet that is it's tracking our interventions throughout the district and the communications throughout the district. And then you have some of the evidence of family engagement, our referral forms, letters, the sample letters, and then of course the data presentations that we do whenever Mrs. Sawanka is here regarding MTSS. Of note, Ms. Sawanka and team have done a brand new DCAP, which is on the website. We have an elementary DCAP draft, which is kind of a variant of that.
What is a DCAP?
So it's a district accommodation. It's the same.
Curriculum.
Thank you. Just a curriculum accommodation. And then obviously the student services website. What is that new document that you just showed? You said you were doing, that you sent out to the.
Right, so our new process guide.
Yes, I didn't put that in here, but
Yes.
can you mention that just for 1 second?
Absolutely. So there was a process guide on there for special education services that needed updating. It was originally updated in 2018. So the team chairs and I worked very hard on updating that process guide in terms of, special education, kind of a guide that walks families and whoever looks at it all the way through special education and all of the services, so on and so forth. And, the processes and procedures. The process guide is a live Google Doc in the sense that within the district, it is shared out with central administration, the building principals, guidance, and special education staff, and they are all viewers. But it has clickable links to take you right to the DESE website, as well as into our Aspen, so they can look at the different forms and so on, and guidances and advisories and things like that. It is also posted on the website. It is not live there. It's not a clickable link. It is for families to look at, but it shows them still what those links are and places that they could go, if they wanted to do some more research on things, but guides through all the special education processes. Because the one that is, within the district for the staff to use is live, whenever there is an update, It will be made, and it will be automatic, and it will be live there, which is really nice. And I think I spoke at the last meeting, that this was updated and, vetted through legal counsel and updated on our website, as is the 504 process guide, and that we are looking at the EL one next.
And I may be able to highlight those in my newsletter
Mhm.
if you think it's a good idea to, right up front. So that is it. That's just obviously this is more of a focus on my goals. I just wanted to provide you with benchmarks and the evidence, and I'm sure I'm missing things, but this gave enough of an insight into the focus we have as a district, and also the focus I've had on my goals. Hopefully. If they haven't, let me know.
I'll open up to committee for questions, Mr. Kearney.
Yeah, great. And thank you for the work of the subcommittee. Appreciate that. This is a well thought of plan, and I know you've been working due diligence. The only thing that stands out to me is, I guess we've been all kind of struggling with this. Either we're just doing such a great job that we're not hearing from the parents, or we're not feeling like the parents are getting hurt. So I'm thinking like, because, I'm in the game with being in the high school game. When I say that, like, I go to sporting events and I hear but most of it's, 90% of it's positive.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, I've asked people that complain to me, such as even like uniforms. What about the uniforms? Like, send an email. Like, I just feel, are you getting emails from folks?
Yes,
Because maybe,
I meet with, I just met with some parents today. I meet and talk to families often and
Okay.
email with them quite often.
Okay.
And that's good.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
I do have,
Kinda
so
figured it-
I'm glad you think it's a big crowd, but I have families reaching out to me
Okay, good.
on a pretty regular basis. But to your point, I mean, I'm always looking for ways to be an effective communicator, but also an effective collaborator with families.
Yeah,
So if there are ways that I can do that better, I'd like to hear them. And if anybody's listening out there and has ideas, I really would do it. That's what I'm here for.
yeah, and thank you for that, because that's something that I feel confident when I say, well, just send an email, because I know it's not like going into space somewhere, that it'll actually get addressed. And I say this often about, like, I've seen parents come in and make a difference in one
Yes.
meeting. We had no nurse, we didn't have a nurse in the middle school, and we had a parent come in, this was a couple of years ago, and just, we found it. So
That's
I think that we have such a pool of strong, smart parents
Yeah.
that we'd love to hear from, and sometimes I feel like I'm just tired of hearing it from me.
And I've tried to be, and I continue to try to be really responsive. There might have been a couple of times I've fallen short on an email or
Yeah.
getting back, but I apologize if that
No.
happened, but I really
would
try
just ask
to be
you
responsive.
I would just ask you sometimes to share some of what you're getting. 'Cause
Yes,
I'd like to know, like, what are you getting?
I do often share with, when it's appropriate without being.
Yeah, no, I don't mean a specific student or a situation.
yeah.
I just, the overall, what do they think?
Yes,
You know?
I do, that's what I do share with Chairman
Yeah.
Dial a lot, like, and without giving names or
Yeah.
identifying figures, I'd
Yeah.
say, we have I've had a few parents ask, talk to me about this,
Yeah,
and we have conversations.
Well-
That's a good topic.
I've always got it, like, the parents ask me about something, I feel like we're such a strong community that we can say stuff. Like financial, I had one friend of mine was financial literacy. And, we did a program with the seniors. And, it's just good to have these answers coming back. So,
You got it. Agreed.
thank you.
Ms. Enoch?
Thank you for your report.
Thank you for your
It's
help.
always impressive to see how diligently you document everything that you're working on. And I always appreciate your responsiveness, things that we discussed at 5 o'clock last night, you've already acted upon and noted in there. So I just have great confidence that you will continue to do that and fulfill the goals this year. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. McCollum?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No questions from the council. Dr. Slade, the only question I have is, what do you do all day? Very, very full.
I talked to you.
Yeah.
Chairman Dial.
16.
That's in jest. It's a very fulsome report. I hope the community recognizes that, that you are everywhere and all at once, and appreciate all that you're doing. And it seems to me that based on this midterm report, you are on track to accomplish your goals. So I think that's very good. I have no further constructive feedback. So with that, we'll, no action required on the committee there. We'll move into block F, which is budget, resource, and governance. We had our custodial review. And so our next substantive is to turn it over to Ms. Susan Owen for our budget and finance presentation. And we have a specific.
Do you want to share the doc? Well, or you want me to?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Whatever it is. Good.
So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm just going to give you a quick update of the January finance report. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. Not a lot has changed. As of the end of January, we are 52 or 53% of our way through the budget. And we're 58% through the school year. So again, we're running a little bit ahead, which is great. Our private materials are all encumbered. No areas of concern. Our sped tuitions, nothing's changed there. There's a slight decrease in our deficit. It went from, I think, 74 to 67, just, it was an adjustment to a purchase order, so it was very minimal. But I do know that we may see a change over the next month. Because I think we have a child coming in. We're changing schools. Depending on which way you look at it, you're moving in or moving out. Again, here's just an update of the individual schools, what they've budgeted, what they have expended, what they've encumbered, their balances. And again, like I said, we're 58% to the school year. And as you can see, each school is in the 40s, other than the high schools at 51%. So again, we're ahead of the game. And I give you, the FTEs per building that make up those dollar amounts. Circuit breaker, no change to circuit breaker. Current year is 701,856, and we're bringing in 1,170,609, which is a great change for us. It's really helping us with balance in our budget for next year. It's in addition to $468,000, excuse me, which it will be great. It's yes, because we rolled over in its entirety to FY24 budget. Reimbursement rate has stayed steady at 75%. I just give you a breakdown, over the years of how many students we've had and what the reimbursement rate has been. No changes there. The next piece is just our capital projects. So all our capital projects for this year were completed very early on in the year. So we don't have any outstanding. And then we have our potential proposed capital for FY24, which we did meet with capital. Once we have not been asked back.
Is it because of the ask?
I did send answers, I did send some answers to
Yeah, I
questions.
saw that was a good clarifying email.
Yes. It was very promising with a lot of questions. We got halfway through. So I don't know if we're gonna come back for the second half. We don't have a date yet.
Right.
Next is just the grants. Just, giving you an idea of what we have for grants. Obviously, the grant amount hasn't changed. As the year goes on, the expended amount obviously goes up. Encumbrances change and the balances go down. So right now we have a balance of about $490,000. Again, lots of these questions come up at advisory about FTEs, so it funds 13.3 FTEs. The next group of accounts are the revolving accounts, which we watch very closely. We're breaking down some of the accounts and splitting them up. But you can see what has been coming in, the receipts change as money comes in, what's been spent, what's been encumbered, and what the balances are. Again, our rental or school use and facilities is still in the negative. That number hasn't changed. The rest of them, so the school committee gifts, that's the one that we're working on right now, because within that, our funds from Osgood with their box top collections and their Life Touch reimbursements and Deer Hills in there. So we're in the process of separating them out. So it's a clearer picture of what's truly a school committee gift and what is the gift to Osgood and Deer Hill, and separate them out. We do have that separate one for the middle and the high school. Then we talk about, next is just, here are FTEs, which is a big conversation on the advisory. They really want to drill down into our FTEs, and I had count, so this shows you that we have 216.13 FTEs, which are full-time equivalents. And out of the 213, it comprises of 266 human bodies.
And that's exclusive of the, is it 13.3?
That is exclusive
For
of,
grants and the 39 for revolving.
correct. Just a little snapshot here of, how much of our salaries are spent on regular ed and how much is spent on special education, and undistributed are kind of the groups that balance both sides. Back to the same number of FTEs and headcount. A breakdown of the schools, and here you can see on the left column is the amount of FTEs that are in the budget. And then in the right column are the amount of FTEs that are paid for by grants or revolving. And in what area, what classification, what position. And it just shows you for the 4 schools. Changes to the FTEs. And then just a brief overview summary of the electric through December and the gas through December. No areas of concern here. This gets into your grants and FTEs, which make up the 13.3 in unawarded grants. And the same thing with the revolving, what revolving accounts and how many FTEs are headcount in each group. And then just a brief food service. Again, the middle school new serving line is beautiful. If you have not been up there, you really should go check it out. They've expanded it.
My superintendent advisory committee, I asked, one of the first things that I said, what's going well? And they said, food. First thing they said, they talked about that, and they talked about the quality of food. Nice.
It's just tremendous. If you get up there, it's really working out great. Because we have you have your deli, you have your everyday sandwiches and salads, you have your main menu, and now what we were trying to do here at the middle school, the next stage of the elementary, is we have one person who's doing specials. So for instance, yesterday was chicken parm, I think was the menu of the day.
Yeah.
Besides all the other things that were going on, but the specials yesterday were beef and broccoli and chicken lo mein.
You know you're doing well when the kids, I said, is there anything not going well with the food? And they said, well, I really like these sandwiches, and sometimes I get them and they're gone. So it was like, they were driving to get this particular sandwich.
So we're definitely, trying different things. Today, the specials were shepherd's pie and chicken pot pie. So those were separate from the menu of the day, which I'm not sure. I didn't make it that far. I stopped.
Hit the shepherd's pie.
And the other thing that I think Brian, Principal Scott mentioned is we're in the process of looking at the tall tables for the city caf, to make it look more like a
High
cafe.
tops.
Look at more like a cafe. I do know that the vending machine is a big hit, but at the request of the principals, that they've been put on a timer, because the kids are spending.
It's so popular, people are, they're just monitoring, they want to keep the class, so they're trying to make them go there at certain times. So it's a huge hit, believe me.
So it's only usable during certain times. That makes sense.
Oh, there are certain times they've said we need to.
Totally appropriate.
That's just started this week.
Also, sure that there's inventory left for people at certain times.
For sure. Oh, yeah, makes sense. It's great. It can be programmed.
So, I mean, that piece has been going fabulous. Transportation,
Excuse me.
we are still in the process of working out details on the electric bus. We're very close to that being done, and we're just trying to, make sure all our i's are dotted, all our t's are crossed before we sign on the dotted line. So I've had help from Tanya on that and Michelle Larry as well. We're just waiting for our eight new buses to come in at the end of this fiscal year, June, July. So that's good.
You just mentioned something about, we had a blip, obviously, where we had one bus had to be delayed. Part of that is we added another route. Now we have another driver to replace. So we have contingencies for when one driver's missed, and we just need to tighten up when we're doing that when two drivers are out. What do we do, right? That's just a blip. It's not, it doesn't mean you're gonna see that a lot.
We're very close. I have to thank First Student for, I reached out to them and they're really doing us a huge favor by taking on two of our routes temporarily, just to June. We had, again, we have two people in training right now.
Yeah.
We interviewed one yesterday, who's gonna start training, already has the CDL and his air brakes. So all he needs is cost endorsement, so he needs 40 hours.
That'll give us another additional, and the app, which is still more of a problem than we had thought it was gonna be.
GPS
The
app.
GPS app with these new buses. We're running into issues with the two
Yes.
first student buses. At one point, we thought it was just as easy as taking
Taking out GPS and sticking it.
it's not.
It's not
And-
it's not that simple, because the GPS they have in for student buses also calculate their time and their hours on the road.
Because remember, we're contracting with another company, so it's a bit complex, but we are working at it.
Well, reliable, timely transportation is more important than GPS tracking.
It is, but that's a nice app and people like it.
It's great,
We
it's
wanna-
excellent, but I mean.
Well, we're not gonna give up the extra buses.
Right.
No,
What I'm suggesting is, you solve one problem, maybe cause another, but the one we caused is, I think, less concern.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's temporary,
I hate the inequity of it.
correct. That's it for transportation, athletics. They're out there this week working on that.
They're out there gluing and sealing.
Down to, they need 2 weeks of good weather and it's complete. So fingers crossed, we can get 2 weeks of good weather, that turf will be done, which is great. We're gonna try to get the fitness center painted over February break, to get that ball rolling, try to get that ramp out of there. Other than that, over the holiday.
It's a holiday. Monday's a holiday.
It's a holiday, over break, there's gonna be a lot of painting going on, waxing the stairwells. The toilet seats at Deer Hill, they've got all the toilet seats, so they're gonna be, replacing them, and then, like I said earlier, the custodians are going through all the bathrooms and making a list of all the things that they think we should be replacing. Osgood, in the Osgood Library, they have a little staircase in there, they'll be carpeting that, the lighting at Deer Hill will be going on.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff going on. Other than that, that's it for the monthly report for January, and then I have one more item that we wanted to talk about, that goes along with preschool.
I will ask but not solicit. Do people have questions on the report before we move to the preschool? If not, we can move straight on to preschool. If you can cognizant of time. Hearing none, we'll move on to the preschool fees.
Is there a doc there too?
Do you have, do you have it? This one?
Do you have? it? No. I don't know. I'm saying, just. Hey, no, isn't that?
Do you have it?
I will find it. Hold
And I probably have it.
on. No, I think I have it.
Projected increase in preschool tuition.
Yes, I do. Budget, finance and preschool, it says. Oh, it's not one document?
There's a slide.
I think
Is it a slide or a doc?
it's just one slide.
So, but it's not on the same, see, I guess I saw that.
It's okay, I have it. I'm gonna bring it up.
Can you? No, I have it. I got it.
I have a hard copy.
I just so
Better from the-
hold it really close to,
You want it faster?
it'll show up back.
did have it up there. I think I shared it, yeah.
Well, I'm sharing it right now. Is that already?
There
Oh,
it is.
There it is. There it is. So preschool, obviously, we are hopeful that we're gonna get a preschool classroom and for the teacher and the ESP. Preschool tuitions have not been increased, as far as I'm told, in a very long time. So this is just a slide that gives you the preschool tuition comparison. At first, on the left side, I will tell you, Cohasset current tuition is $2,800. Other public preschool, you can see there is Weymouth at $34.85, Noble at $33.30, Duxbury at $31.80, Kingston at $3,000, Hingham $2,700, Marshfield at $2,500. And then private preschools, Carriage House is $6,400, and South Shore Community Center is $5,505. So obviously the privates are much higher. And then as you can see, in the middle, it says FY '23 with 16 peers, which is what we currently have at 2,800. The cost of that program is $161,000. The revenue we're bringing in is $44,800. The difference is $116,200, which is what the school budget absorbs. If we move into next year with 2 classrooms, that would be 32 peers, leaving the rate at 2,800. You can see the cost would be $263. Revenue $89,600, and the difference is $173,400. So again, the school budget's absorbing a piece of that. And then underneath, it will say FY '24 with 32 peers, and these are just 2 options. One is raising it up $200 to $3,000. With that increase, it will support 1 whole class. It won't support a piece of the second class, and then if we, we increased it to a $3,200 preschool tuition, the cost would be $263,000. Revenue would be about $102,000, and the fee would be about $160,000. That will support a whole class as well. So that's just something we want to put out there, which worked out well. Mr. Walker's here too, if there's any questions regarding preschool. 16 years are the families that pay.
Yes.
And then we also have an equal amount of students, close to the amount of students in those classrooms with special education. And they don't pay.
Within the numbers, yes.
So that's just something to think about. We're recommending an increase of something.
Yes,
Somebody wanted to talk about in the Finance and Facilities Committee?
exactly.
We did,
We
yeah.
did. Indirect, we did.
We didn't, I don't know, crunching the number, did we vote?
No, we
No, no,
didn't
no,
crunch any numbers. We just did, she just wanted to put this out and let
Perfect.
everybody
Yep.
kind of.
Yes, well,
I remember
I'm
you did.
not looking for a vote today.
Yeah, just.
I just wanted to put it out there because I know they're getting ready to put preschool information out.
Did you want to have some discussion on it, possibly?
Sure. Open for discussion.
Yeah, so we received the request. I'll open it up to discuss. Mr. Kearney.
Honestly, I wish it was covered by the state, some states are, Florida does. However, we don't, and, it is something that I would like to charge, however it is in kindergarten. We are working to get kindergarten paid for. However, I think that when you look at the Carriage House and the South Shore Community Center and what they're offering, I think we're offering a really good product. I think it's worth the money to pay, so.
Mr. Chair, can I make a motion to table for discussion on this topic in the interest of time to another meeting? Because it keeps in line with our sort of introducing this concept right now. We can talk about another meeting. We have, because I realized we have a lot more to do.
We have
And
executive
this
session.
isn't, we can't take any vote on this anyway. The
Right.
community didn't even know about it. This is just the first time we're putting it out there. I think it's
What I
appropriate.
want to do is make sure that if there is any specific asks that the committee wants, those are given back to the administration. So,
I do think it's important to note that when we were at Capitol the other day, they asked about our did you already say this? I don't do that.
No.
They asked about our preschool tuition and if it had changed at all over in the recent years. So if it's something that they're aware, as we're asking to fund the expansion of our program.
Advisory.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
advisory, oh my gosh, I
No,
don't
it's
even know where I am. Advisory, when we went to advisory the other day, I actually didn't even know what committee we were sitting with, but, no, that's not true. They did bring up the question, have we changed our tuition at all? You know, we're asking for more money to expand the program, what are we doing on our end to help fund it? So I think that's an important thing to know. Thank you. Advisory.
You want to
We
further
were talking about.
No. On my end, Ms. Owen, the one thing I wanted to see as we move forward is what did we request in our budget with respect to preschool? Is this 173 covered already in our budget request that we put forward? So how does this compare to that? And then I think that's really my ask. So thank you for the update.
Thank you.
All right, so transportation, I think, Dr. Sullivan, you actually kind of covered the one issue of the day with the transportation.
So we got
So we can do that. I don't think there are any food service updates beyond what we've already kind of
We
covered
did
actually in the meeting. Representative from the school facilities committee, I don't think there's a report there.
I'm not gonna give a report.
So no report. Now we have any reports from our school committee subcommittees or our liaisons.
I'll give a brief policy update. After many technological challenges, we were able to continue the review of our policy binder, and just so you all know kind of what's coming down the pike. Lance and Leslie and I are trying to get all policies dated. So, you know, Ashley, Leslie, and I did a lot of work in the last few years, and Barbara too, getting policies updated and then a date on them when they were updated. And so we're going through and determining, kind of our first pass is what already aligns with the mass policy binder. And we feel we can leave as is, but we will put it out to you so that we're informing you, these align already. We propose to keep them as they are, and then we can date them as of that approval date. And then we have kind of tiers to work through from there. So it's a long-term project, but we're trying to take some pretty big chunks out of it and then just share some large groups of policies with or without changes to all of you. So we'll probably come back end of March with some of those based on our next meeting time.
No other subcommittees. We'll move on to school committee governance. The only topic that was not reasonably anticipated by chair relates to executive session. It is mentioned on the agenda. I think we must have got it in right under the deadline of number 4, matters of building security. So that is on there. No other topics not reasonably anticipated. We don't have minutes to approve at this meeting, so we'll skip through that. Are there any future agenda items?
Yeah, I want to mention that after school programs that.
Okay.
Yes.
Still work on that.
Oh, yeah.
The gym's open.
Thank you. All right, we do have 2 reasons to move into executive session. One is to discuss some matters in anticipation of collective bargaining and litigation. And the second is a matter related to building security. I am going to propose that we move into executive session and not reconvene in general session after the meeting. So we will just end the actual broadcast. So, and we won't make a thing because we aren't going to come back into the meeting. So this motion would be to effectively move into executive session without reconvening general meeting for reasons number 3 and number 4. Do I have a motion?
So we would be adjourning the open session and moving into executive
Yes,
session.
moving into executive session without redoing the open session.
So move.
Second.
Second.
So,
All right, roll call vote, Mr. Kearney.
yes.
Ms. St. Ange?
Aye.
Scott, aye. Yes, we are now moving into executive session. Thank you all for attending at home. We'll shut off our electronics and we will see you in our next